pretty impressive way you handled your chat room. You've definitely been doing this a while.
Well, you know what? We always if they take the time to come in early, they deserve a hello from me.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Absolutely. Simply Coco, you are looking lovely and talented tonight. Science Bob McGuire is here, everyone. Make sure you say hi to Science Bob. Third Rock, welcome to our chat room for the first time. Good to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Chris Reap, once again, I think we're caught up here. And I want to remind you that a great way to support this show, we have the Super Chat open. If you're new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers before May 24th, which will be my 48th birthday. And that's kind of the present from you to me. Hey, Mark Ellens, how you doing? Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. And if you're interested in any swag from Spaced Out Radio, go to facebook.com/the SOR Vault. It's a great place to get t-shirts. Sir Wolf, good to see you. The lovely Jessica McCreary, nice to have you back. And we're going to get going here in literally about 10 seconds. Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group is our guest tonight, and we are going to have a blast with him. Here we go, ready for launch. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you wish to take a listen to our archives, we have them free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Are we in times of disclosure, confirmation, or are we still sitting here twiddling our thumbs waiting for the aliens to make their presence known? Stephen Bassett is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group. He's been doing this since 1996 to try and end a government-imposed embargo on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related phenomena. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of disclosure, the formal confirmation by heads of state of an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. Bassett has appeared on many documentary films, and his lectures and interviews are well represented all over social media, including YouTube. ParadigmResearchGroup.org is the website. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Stephen Bassett, you come on this show a couple times a year. We're glad to have you here for the first time in 2021. A lot has changed since you were last on.
Yes, indeed. Without question. The whole world is changing. It's hard to keep up.
I got to ask you, there's so much going on in this world. Where do we sit with UFOs in Washington, D.C. at this time? Is it even a priority with COVID going on?
I think the answer is no to that. It's a huge development underway that is masked by the COVID pandemic, slowed by the COVID pandemic. But before that, it was being slowed by the political circumstances here. So this happens. I mean, activism and processes are affected by historical events. Happens all the time. And we've had some pretty big ones in the last 4 years, without question. But the fact is that something huge happened in 2017, which essentially changed this issue forever and really put us on the road to disclosure. No turning back. And I'm optimistic that we can get it soon now.
Stephen, for people who may not be familiar with you, you've been one of the only, if not the only, UFO activist in Washington, D.C. This is something where you've literally, for the last 26 years, have given up your life in order to try and bring this to the attention of everybody from politicians to delegates around the world. And it didn't matter what country they were from, what party they were from. You made this your personal mission. Why did you feel like you needed to be the sacrificial lamb for this?
I don't view myself as a sacrificial lamb. As activist paths go, this has hardly been dangerous and arduous. I know I've studied activism, and I'm aware of some of the activist movements in the past, and I can assure you they were a lot harder than this. But I saw an opportunity to do something that I was interested in. It could make a difference, and I seized the opportunity. And it came in 1995, and I got lucky and got involved and ended up in D.C. and decided I would focus on the politics, not the research. I didn't want to be a researcher. There are plenty of those. And so I became the first registered lobbyist on the issue, which attracted attention from the Washington Post, got me a big article in the paper with a big photo and all that, and launched me, even though I didn't know my ass from my elbow, right? This was 1996, July 1996. I'm still the only registered lobbyist active in Washington on this issue. There is one other lobbyist, possibly two, that have registered, but for most of the last 24 years, there's the only one. For some reason, nobody else wanted to join me, maybe because the pay was zero and the subject was ridiculed, and it didn't seem to offer much opportunity. So I guess others didn't want to participate. But it's been an interesting 24 years. Progress has been made, but I didn't have the gravitas or the resources to get the ball across the end zone. And none of my colleagues did either. And there have been some attempts, believe me. There's been efforts to advance this issue in a lot of different ways, and all of them were important. All of them led to where we are now. But none of us in the field had the gravitas to score the winning touchdown until 2017, and that's when the A-team showed up.
The A-team is now split up, though, in the Stars Academy. How do you think?
Not exactly split up. That would be not the right characterization. Though we're getting ahead of ourselves, but let me just say that the To the Stars Academy team that was announced in October 2017 was the most heavy-duty group of people to ever openly engage the issue in a positive way. They had long careers in military, intelligence, and even contractors, research. All had high security clearances, full careers, and now they devoted themselves to addressing this issue as public-private citizens, which was necessary because they couldn't have done it from inside the military intelligence complex. And the To the Stars Academy was launched, and that was the beginning of this new era. And then, of course, 2 months later, they provided the New York Times those stories, those huge stories published December 16, 2017, New York Times front page. That was the Rubicon that we crossed. That was the point at which this issue crossed the Rubicon into the government, into the office of state, like Caesar's armies, and there was no going back. And since then, it's been a fascinating process, which has been significantly impacted not only by the political realities that emerged in 2017, but also, of course, ultimately the pandemic. But it has moved forward with some consistency, and now the table has been set to close this deal. And that's when I came back. When I realized that, I came back to Washington. It was late 2019. The idea was to set up an office, a studio, start a podcast, and get ready for the play that was about to launch. But it got slowed down by the pandemic. So I kind of did other things, cooled my heels, waiting to see what would happen, as was the To the Stars Academy, waiting to see what happened. And what happened was a change in administration, a new Senate, which pretty much offered the best circumstances to go forward, which is why a couple of weeks ago, Tom DeLonge, Luis Elizondo, and Steve Justice, I consider the three key people in the To the Stars Academy, stepped out. wasn't a split. They stepped away, and they had to. Again, this is my assessment. I'm not getting any information from them. Now, why would these three gentlemen step away from the TTSA at that time? Most people would know if they're not really following the politics of this. But I believe the reason was fairly straightforward. Christopher Mellon had been the lead in terms of briefing the Congress. He's the one that set up the meetings on the Hill, by and large. He's the one that brought the witnesses up there. Luis Elizondo may have played a role there. And by witnesses, I mean military witnesses, and by that I mean mostly pilots, who were briefing members of Congress privately on the Nimitz event and other things. I noted that early on, and that was a big deal, but it was when I learned the president had been given a briefing by the pilots that I said, okay, that's it, and I moved from California back to D.C. So these briefings were basically off the record, which is important. In other words, there was going to be no press conference. There was going to be no transcript. They were meeting privately, which they have the right to do, with members of Congress and, most importantly, committee chairs. All right? Okay, great. We know about these meetings because a few of the members of Congress did confirm that they had a meeting. Okay? And it was kind of other little things that come out, so we kind of knew about it, but the details and the reasons were not public. No problem. Of course, I pretty much knew what the reasons were. Meanwhile, prior to that, those that watched the Unidentified series, all 14 episodes, and listened to the interviews that Elizondo were giving and Mellon were giving, it was not hard to figure out that they were gathering up witnesses. Some of those witnesses were on the show, some were with Silhouette, but they were getting a lot of witnesses together, and then I learned that they had gotten scores of contacts from other military types who were witnesses that approached them privately, meaning, hey, looks like it's okay to talk now. Fravor's talking, Day's talking, so I got a story. I saw something, and they were contacting them, and which meant that Elizondo was gathering essentially a list of vetted witnesses. Okay, Mellon is setting the stage with the Congress. Where is this going? Hearings. That was their agenda all along. Congressional hearings. Get the witnesses together, get the Congress on board, start holding hearings for these military witnesses. That would be massive. That would be what we've been waiting for 52 years. That's the last hearing, 68, 1 day, 4 witnesses, no big deal. That's it, it was over. Then they closed down Blue Book. This would be it, because the way to disclosure has always been through hearings. Okay, so as we get closer, it's appropriate that Elizondo and Mellon and Steve Justice, who is going to be a key person, step away from the TTSA. Why? Because there was acrimony? No, not at all. As you get down to, it's one thing to brief Congress, it's one thing to gather witnesses, but when you start to get to the point where you're actually going to be engaging in the Congress to negotiate the hearings, to plan them and set them up, it can't be an interface with the To the Stars Academy. That's a public benefit corporation. He's raised money. They've got an entertainment division. They're doing all this. That's cool. No problem. It has to be with Elizondo, Mellon, and Steve Justice as individuals negotiating this on behalf of themselves and the American people. And so they needed to step out. Made total sense. And for me, it was another indicator, a key indicator, that that's exactly where this is heading. So it's no disrespect to the TTSA. The TTSA has replaced them. They've brought on some financial types because obviously they're planning to raise more money. And I tell you, if we have disclosure, the TTSA will have no trouble raising large sums of money. So that's what's going down in a nutshell. And that's where I'm focusing my attention. But there's still a lot to be accomplished and done before those hearings happen.
How does TTSA survive without these guys? Because they were such big players in Washington, D.C. and at the Pentagon that when they spoke, people listened. It wasn't about Tom DeLonge or even Hal Puthoff or Jim Semivan. It was mostly about Lou, Steve, and Chris. I'll agree that those were the 3 key players. So how does the TTSA move on this subject?
That those were 3 key players in the initial actions of the To the Stars Academy, giving it the gravitas the impressive credentials. Not that the other people didn't have impressive credentials. So in launching the TTSA and raising some money, they raised about $2.5 million, totally appropriate. And that's fine. But were they essential to the fundamental mission? No. The TTSA set up a mission statement. It involved research, entertainment, documentaries, books, and it was fundamentally about providing a group that could have the legitimacy and the platform to bring information to the public that the public could take to the bank. All right? In other words, information about the ET issue. That's the kind of the basic mission statement. I believe the fundamental agenda, though, was to move to hearings. But nevertheless, they didn't set up the Public Benefit Corporation in order to get hearings. They set that up in order to support raise money and support the organization. And that they did. But there's one other thing. It's my view, until I'm corrected, that the plan was not to launch in October of 2017. The plan is to put the organization together, interface with John Podesta and the Democrats, anticipating an election win. And then after the election, maybe even before inauguration, they were going to launch the TTSA, just as they had. And as soon as Clinton was in the White House, and the press was all over because of all the articles that have been written about her, that's on me. I'm the one that drove that media process. Then they would quickly move toward hearings. In other words, bam, bam, bam. The reason it got awkward is because she lost, and they didn't know what to do. They had to back off, and the political environment for their agenda was simply not the same. It was not good. In fact, the country was in chaos and remained in chaos. So they ended up stuck for 4 years, and they couldn't do a lot of the things they could do. They couldn't really raise the money. They had to tread water. They did lose a couple of people because I don't think the plan was for them to tread water for 4 years waiting to make a move. It was based on the Clinton win. It was based upon the huge connection between the Clintons and the ET issue and all the media coverage, not to mention during the campaign, she was giving these statements. Podesta was on shows. Her husband went on a show. So they're making all these statements. That had never happened before in a presidential campaign. So that's what not happened. Okay, so now we have this extended scenario. It's been a long slog, but they had two possibilities. If Trump won again, they probably would have had to go forward somehow, some way, though it was going to be very hard because the political situation was going to be awful. But if there was a change of administration and also a change of the Senate, which was very important, the situation would be optimal. The reason for the Senate is it's easier to get hearings if the one party has all the committee chairs. If you've got one party with the Senate chairs and one party with the House chairs, then the House wants to hold hearings and the Senate goes, screw you, we don't want to do that. We're not going to do it. But that's not a problem now. So they have an optimal situation. They Mellon then step out to pursue the hearings. Now let's make one more point here. If those hearings take place, if that leads to the confirmation announcement from President Biden, I wouldn't worry too much about the future of the TTSA. They're going to be just fine.
We may agree to disagree with that because I have an entirely different counterpoint on that. But, that's for later on in a conversation or maybe even a different show. The big thing is now that the TTSA basically got what they accomplished, I got to ask you, in regards to the media in Washington, D.C., granted everything is about COVID, everything is about what's happened since the election on, okay, but is the media still remaining cognizant in Washington, D.C. about the UFO topic? Are they just keeping it on the back burner right now because there are other bigger stories, or have they dropped the ball again?
It's still on top of the stove. And there's still coverage. There's no question that the amount of coverage has been severely affected by the political circumstances. I mean, the odd insurrection, the odd global pandemic. I mean, so, hey, it's amazing we're getting any coverage at all. But the fact is, when anything new happens, they do jump on it, and they jump on it with fervor. So whether it's Avi Loeb, Harvard, deciding that he wants to make Oumuamua the hill he's going to die on with respect to the ET issue, which was fascinating to watch, or whether it's the recent FOIA response from the DOD to Bergaglia about materials, which got picked up and made a big deal, and the Sun is saying, oh my God, they're saying that they have crash vehicle materials and all this other stuff, which is not what it said. In other words, if anything, they're responding with over-responding when something happens. But if nothing has happened, then they settle back and deal with these other things. But there has been plenty of coverage on this issue, including television coverage, though most of that has been on Fox. Now, but let me get this out before I forget. For your listeners who are struggling with understanding what in the hell is going on here, and I don't blame them because it's just been so much happening, and it's been stretched out over 4 years, I have a suggestion. Here's what you do. You go to my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, or Google Paradigm Research Group, it comes right up. And then you go to resources and you scroll down or slide down to a print media archive. You open the print media archive and you go to October 11, 2017 and start there. And then slowly move forward in time and read every one of the earmarked articles I have there, linked articles, to the TTSA and subsequent events related to it, directly and indirectly. There's about 700 articles, equivalent to about a 400-page book. And again, these are mainstream news articles, very little noise, not a lot of speculation, not a lot of that other stuff that's kind of floating around. It's just a basic coverage of the mainstream media of what is happening. And you read all those 700 articles, and by the time you get done, you will be one of the most knowledgeable people in the world on these developments with a minimum amount of hype and or speculation, right? Do that, and you'll get a picture. I have done that, which is why I'm able to how would you say, give this prospective analysis about what I think is going on. I have a very strong feeling about what's happening. I feel very confident, and I'm going to continue to put out this analysis until such time as someone corrects me, meaning they get in touch and say, look, I'm inside, I know what's going on, you've got this wrong, here's the deal. And then I'll make the adjustments. Until then, since they're not giving us the background story and the origin stories, and they're not able to tell us their ultimate agenda, and they're doing a lot in secret, which I understand, then that I'm going to have to, again, be the speculative analyst for the time being.
Steve, we have 2 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, and there's so much that needs to be covered yet tonight. I'm curious, how have you personally been able to stay on top of all of this? I know this is your job, and that's the easy answer out of that, but how have you managed with all these different angles to stay on top of everything?
Well, as you say, it's my job. It's all I do. I'm able to do it because there are some people out there that support me. I would welcome any more support, I can assure you. There's a contribution page on my website, of course. But I've got enough support to be able to stay on it. I also have stripped my life down to basics, right? I don't take any vacations in Hawaii, and my vehicles are paid for and very, very old. Whatever. The point is, this is what I do. This is all that I do. And so I have all the media. I've got the internet. I've got everything I need. Plus, I made it in other words, when I started archiving the media articles, I didn't just do it so I could have a big archive of media articles. It's now 12,000. I did it because by doing that and reading these articles, that's one way to stay up on it. I mean, you read 11,000 articles on this subject in chronological order, and you get a pretty good picture. Now, who the hell has time for that? Well, I did. And of course, when it comes to websites, podcasts, and of course, interviews. I've done more interviews on this subject than any person in the history of the subject, including my fantastic colleagues. I'm in the 12, 13, 1,400 range. I don't know where the hell it is. I've already booked 50 interviews this year. What is it? February 16. Interviews is one way to keep up on it because you're having to constantly prepare for these interviews, and you're talking about it, and you talk about it over and over and over again, and you're able to hone the message and put things together. And so it's kind of like that. Believe me, I wish I read more. I got a whole wall of books here. I need to read several hundred of them, but you know how that is. But I am milking the internet for everything. But also, I'm careful of what I pay attention to. I stay away from the crazy stuff.
Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group is here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're going to find out more about UFOs in 2021 here on the Mighty SOR. All right, we are clear. We are still hot to mic to YouTube, though, so just know that they can hear us. Hi, Theodora. How are you? Unicorp's Tales, welcome to our chat room for the first time. We got 5 minutes, Steve.
You okay? All right. By the way, I see you got some guitars in your studio there. Were you a rocker?
No, I just pretend to be one.
Okay.
I honestly know like 2 chords. And the story behind the guitars is weird. Nobody in my house plays. This one here is my daughter's. Those 2 are mine. And around the house, there's actually another one in the corner over here. And then I think in my son's room, there's like 4 of them, and he's only 7. But when I was a kid, my parents, they didn't leave the early 60s and the 50s music, and then they jumped right into 70s country. And so it was always, there was never any rock and roll in our house. And the first real rock and roll song I recall hearing that really is memory was hearing some AC/DC and Def Leppard back in the early 1980s and Van Halen. And I remember I was like 12 years old and I was like, I want to learn how to play guitar. My dad always, because of all the 50s songs, he loved the saxophone. And no, you're going to play saxophone. Okay, Dad, I'll play saxophone. And I played it for like 2 years and I absolutely hated it.
That's too bad. I feel bad for you, Dave.
And I was like, I want to play guitar. And from literally the time I was like 12 years old, 11 years old, I was asking for a guitar every Christmas. And I didn't get my first guitar until I was 39 years old.
Ouch.
And that's almost 30 years of Christmases and birthdays. And but life kicks in, man, between playing sports and kids and, working 2 jobs with my daytime job and then the radio job at night. Never have had time to learn how to play. But
no, you had your window. You had your window when you were that young kid. Somebody from the future should have come back and told your dad that there just aren't any multimillionaire saxophone players.
Very few.
But guitar players, my God.
Yeah.
I took up the acoustic guitar, which is a string guitar, nylon. It's so much harder to learn. If I had taken up the rock guitar, who knows what would have happened.
All right. Steam Train Mark in Australia can confirm, Steve, after some research, that we are alive tomorrow in Australia.
Excellent.
Yes, we made it.
I don't know about Texas, though. Worried about them.
Oh, my God.
They're freezing to death down there, which is rather odd, actually.
All the gruesomeness aside of that, being Canadian, where we just got out of like last week, this time, it was probably like minus 35 Celsius.
Yeah.
Take away all the death and the horror of everything, but it is funny. It is funny. Yeah.
The problem is that Canadians are totally prepared for it. They got all the right tools, but when it hits a place like
I know it's amazing.
Texas, it's a slaughter. They had 100-car pileup.
I saw that. I was watching some of that footage where,
heavy duty. It's not fair. It's not fair. But on the other hand, if the roads are icy, you would think probably not a good time to drive, or maybe drive really slow. I don't know. I don't get it. Same thing in Washington. If we get a decent snow, the Beltway goes insane.
Well, the problem is, like in Texas, if I lived in Texas, I would never invest in winter tires. I would never invest in winter tires.
Well, no.
You get a good set of all seasons, you're fine. Right? Like I look up here, God, up here from October 1st until April 1st, if you are caught without using winter tires, you get like a $400 or $500 fine.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? Hey, JJ, how are you? Welcome to the chat room. So, nobody being prepared down there. I mean, it's horrific. Even my booking guy, Corrins, he's, we were talking yesterday before the show, and they were having the rolling blackouts. Like he could only charge his phone every half an hour.
Yeah. It's a once in a century ice storm.
Oh, yeah.
And it's reflective of the fact that we're getting dramatic climate swings, and there's this, and it's going to be very expensive. That's a lot of millions of dollars going down the drain down there. Let me tell you, very expensive, and we're not on top of it yet. We need to get our act together.
Hold on, Steve. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. Always a pleasure to have each and every one of you tuning us in. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Stephen Bassett from Paradigm Research Group. We're talking Ufology 2021 tonight. Stephen, thank you so much for doing this.
It's my job, Dave. That's what I do, man. You put a microphone in front of me, and I just turn my switch on.
Have you met a microphone that you haven't liked yet?
Not yet.
I didn't think so. One of these days, though, I do want to see you smile. I've
been smiling here. I've been smiling. Of course I've been smiling. You can see me. See, we're on video. Your listeners are on radio. But, yeah, no, we're good, man. I'm sitting here in my office with the background behind me and feeling pretty cool. I'm in a studio. I have my own studio.
I know. It's beautiful.
I've
been looking at your book collection there.
Absolutely. And I got a podcast, which I'm late to the game. Almost everybody that I know has a podcast, but I figured better late than never.
Steve, you have always been very, very open about the fact that you think disclosure has always been more of a Democratic movement, Democrat Party movement, rather than a conservative or a Republican Party movement. Why is that?
I didn't phrase it that way. What I have said is that if you look at the history in the United States now, the Democrats have engaged the issue far, far more than the Republicans in the open. I don't know what's going on secretly. Who knows? And that's just a fact. It's not a political statement. It's not a partisan statement. Jimmy Carter tried to engage the issue, got stonewalled. Bill Clinton got dragged to the issue by Rockefeller, but he gave a run, got stonewalled. The Republican presidents have had very little to do. There's been a few minor exceptions. Reagan got briefed, I think, about the ET issue, a limited briefing, not full briefing, around the time they were doing the pitch in the SDI program. And he was a very curious and intelligent man, and he was excited about it, but he obviously just couldn't spill the beans, but he would bring it up from time to time in his speeches. And we know the famous comments about, hey, if there was an ET threat or an alien threat, wouldn't we all come together, which is fine. But that's hardly a significant engagement. And so now it's not hard to understand this. The Republicans have been the party most supportive of our national defense and military, right? They've prided themselves in that, all right? And so if that's where you're at, you're much less likely to do anything that's going to offend the Department of Defense. And pushing any buttons on the ET issue was going to offend the hell out of the Department of Defense. In other words, they did not want to engage this. There was a truth embargo. And so essentially, either implicitly or explicitly, the Republican Party has supported that truth embargo. They do not rattle that cage. The Democrats have. That's the reason.
Does religion play a part of that because the Republicans more or so are more on the religious conservative side?
Not too much. I think the evangelicals are probably the most squeamish of the ET issue. Their numbers are not huge, but there's a lot. And that's usually the strongest, the most, how would you say, intense evangelicals, not all. And that tends to be on the Republican side. But overall, religion has less and less been a factor in the politics of this issue. In the early days, there was concerns that religion would be extremely upset if there was an announcement. I disagree. I think if it had come out in July of '47, which it almost did, I mean, if the reporters had gotten to Roswell, interviewed 50, 60 people, it would have been impossible to put the cat in the bag. And the world would have learned that there's ETs here. And the idea that religions would have gone nuts is just, I don't think, supportable. All the religions of the world just went through World War II, right? You know, and they came out of it. And they dealt with it, and they sacrificed, and they had a lot of pain and suffering. So the idea that they would fall apart because ETs were... However, that's in the past. You could debate it till hell freezes over. However, if you look at the history going forward, religion is not a barrier to this. However, and this is not something I like, the government has been quick to make religion an excuse for the truth embargo. They have put that out frequently, meaning, you know, the world would be very upset if that were to happen and we would get such an announcement, which means they're using religion as a scapegoat to justify the truth embargo. I don't like that. I think it was not particularly appropriate. They don't seem to do it now so much. In fact, you don't hear much about religion at all, other than the Catholic Church goes out of its way to talk extraterrestrials every chance it gets. Religion is not a problem.
Okay, so if I look over the last 4 years, I know that you have stated many times, including on this show, that Donald Trump winning the presidency back in 2016 really threw a wrench into the whole disclosure/confirmation movement, at least in the plan. When I look at it, okay, and I've covered it a lot more over the last 4 years as our show kind of grew along with that administration, I saw... outside of the New York Times articles, I saw very few coverages with, say, Democrat-leaning journalism and newspapers, television, like CNN. I saw Fox News covering it quite a bit with Tucker Carlson, even though I will go on the record say I'm not really a fan of his, especially since he switched from the bow tie to the necktie. And,
yeah, there's that.
And the other thing, too, is it seemed like this question always revolved around Trump because of the New York Times article. And I saw him talking a lot about it, never gave an answer, always denied the existence. But then we see fellow Republicans like Marco Rubio and Mark Warner in the Intelligence Committee saying, hey, U.S. Navy, we need to have some meetings and discuss this. So in my opinion, and I'm just saying this as an outsider, I'm not even American, okay, but as an outsider speaking, I look at it and say, I saw a lot of positive progress the last 4 years in trying to get the UFO subject into the hands of the delegates that need to be discussing this.
Well, let's see. How can I parse that? Well, first of all, if you were to go to my website and start reading a lot of those articles that I've linked there, you will find that they're mainstream press. It's as you say, if you want to divide up the liberal press and right press, you will find plenty of articles from both sides covering this issue for the last 4 years. So that's not a point. I'm fully aware of everything that was publicly out there regarding how this issue touched on the Trump administration, and all I can say is it was minuscule. Compared to the Democrats, compared to the Clintons, it was just minuscule. It was in play. I mean, look, those articles were major historical articles, and they occurred in the Trump administration. So the idea that it wasn't going to pop up a little bit. And so he was asked on a couple of occasions about it, gave very essentially non-committing responses, nothing substantive. And there was no follow-up in the administration on the ET issue. There was the Space Force, which people think might have been connected to that. I don't think it was. I think the Space Force was not. an ET-based decision. It was just something that could be done. He threw it out. The military got some money from it. So it was essentially an ingratiation to the DOD. I don't think the DOD wanted a Space Force, but the DOD is not in the habit of turning money down. So if you actually look at the history, there's just nothing there. Keep in mind that for them to engage the ET issue, which would be a monumental thing, they would have had to get apart from all of the distractions that were going on, endless chaos that was going on. And so it just wasn't going to happen. Now, Mark Walker, who is a Republican congressman, was one of the people that were briefed, and he got a little excited. He wasn't supposed to do this, but he is a congressman. And so he fired off a letter to Secretary of Navy Spencer saying, hey, I got briefed by some pilots, and what the hell's going on, and why aren't you saying more? Spencer gave him kind of a non-committal return letter, and he was irritated by that. Spencer was fired about 6 days later, and then Walker never talked about it again. He was probably pulled back, meaning, Mark, this is a private briefing. You're not supposed to get into this at this time. And then a lot more time passes, and then Rubio jumps in not that long ago. It was back in June. Now, this was a Marco Rubio production. All right, this wasn't the White House. This was Marco Rubio. So when he and Mark Warner got briefed, and that's the Senate Intelligence Committee, which would be an absolute key committee for hearings on this issue, all right, Mark Warner mentioned that he had been briefed, and that's it. Rubio went further. Marco's a pretty shrewd character. He has ambitions. And so there's this massive issue taking place, and he said, I need to be I need to get out in front of this, but I have to be careful, okay? I can't take political risks. And so he was brilliant in what he did. He said, look, I'm going to put wording into this bill which says, hey, we need some information back from agencies like the ONI or whatever's out there, kind of clarifying what they're doing, what's going on. And I'm going to put that language in the appropriations bill, but we're going to put a 180-day period on it. I mean, you got up to 180 days, which from the time it's signed, which ended up being around mid-June now. So it's going to be after the election, well into next year, no problem for me. Plus, he's not up for election. He wasn't up for election last year, so he's safe there. It was a brilliant maneuver to get into the game. And believe me, he got a lot of press from that. And he will always be known as somebody that was making a proactive measure to try to get to this issue. He will reap some benefits from that. So that's what was going on with Rubio. Republican thing? No, that was a Marco Rubio thing, and brilliantly done. And when the hearings take place, he will still be the ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he will get extra credit for being part of the end of the truth embargo.
Okay, so if Rubio did that for his own self-good and potentially his political future, solidifying it in at least this realm and with voters of the strange and unnatural, why go down that road? Why take that chance?
Well, first of all, he wouldn't have done it 10 years ago or 20 years ago, might even done it 6 years ago. The point is that these are very smart people. They can read the New York Times. They see what's going on with the TTSA. They're seeing these witnesses come forward on the History Channel. They see the coverage. They see the Navy making responses. All these responses to what the TTSA is doing, the way to describe them is these are entities, agencies, and people, including the Harvard professor, who are seeing that the disclosure train is starting to warm up the engines. And it's going to leave the station pretty soon, and you have a choice. Get on the train or stay on the platform and let history go on without you. And so Avi Loeb is on the train now. Marco Rubio is on the train. It was in his mind, it was safe to do this. And he understood what I've been saying for years. The confirmation, which people are using the term confirmation because of the confusion of capital D, small d disclosure. I get that. So capital D disclosure is a presidential confirmation of the ET issue. He realizes that event is going to be the most profound event in human history. And the political capital that we derive from that, if you're involved, is going to be huge. And so the risk was lowered. The event may be coming. You get on board at that point. I don't think, and but remember, the way he did it was minimal political risk. Right? If he had been up for election last year, he wouldn't have done it. but he was safe. And so he's now attached. He's got a lot of great press from it. It's nonpartisan. I mean, there's no reason why his base should be upset about it. It has nothing to do with Democrats. It's a nonpartisan thing. And I'm surprised more people haven't done this, and that may still happen. As we get closer, as that train gets closer to leaving the station, you're going to have people jumping on the damn thing off the platform, in my view.
Okay. So what do we know about Joe Biden and his knowledge of this subject then? Because the ball is in his court now.
It certainly is. Okay. Excellent question. We know nothing from Joe Biden, right? He has not engaged this issue. That doesn't mean he doesn't know anything, but he's chosen not to engage it. Well, here's what we do know about Biden. He was in the Senate for 40 years, something like that. I forget how many years. He was in the Senate during the Clinton administration. So he was working with the Clinton administration on policies and so forth. It's inconceivable, and he was a pretty important senator. It's inconceivable he wasn't aware that the Rockefeller Initiative was going on over at the White House. He had to know. It was not a classified program. It wasn't covered by the media. I think they wrote one article, but nevertheless, he would have known about it. Okay, fine. He would have certainly been aware of Podesta's statements following the administration in 2002, 2003, the foreword to Leslie Kane's book. All the stuff that Podesta was doing, he would have known. He's a high-ranking Democrat, and when a man of Podesta's stature, former chief of staff to the president, and the founder of the Center for American Progress is talking ET stuff, he is going to know it. So he knows that. All right. So time goes forward. And obviously, he can watch TV, he can read the news like anybody else. And so, as you know, there were plenty of things happening. There's always something happening regarding the ET issue. That doesn't mean he's going to engage it. There was no real reason why he should engage it. It wasn't in his bailiwick, and he had plenty of fish to fry. However, when Obama wins the election, when Obama knocks Clinton out of the election of 2008 and gets the nomination, I think Clinton had aspirations for disclosure then. She intended to be the disclosure president all along, though she didn't want to engage it. I started to get a media thing going to draw her in like I did in 2015, 16, but she was knocked out before that could get going. So Obama wins the election. And then he did something very important, which I've talked about many times. Even though there was a lot of unpleasantness that went on between the Clinton team and Obama, so much so that the black superdelegates in the Democratic Party started abandoning her and switching to Obama, which started the landslide, which led to him getting the nomination. So it was not hunky-dory. And yet, when Obama wins, the first thing he does is hire Podesta to be his campaign transition co-chair. I mean, and basically the chairman of the transition team to set up the new government. The same Podesta that had been talking ETs for the last 15 years, okay? And then what do they bring in Clinton as the Secretary of State. And then they bring in Clinton's chief of staff during the Rockefeller Initiative, Leon Panetta, to be the CIA director. And they tried to bring in Clinton friend, close confidant, Bill Richardson, New Mexico, to be the Secretary of Energy, but he had to bail from that. Secretary of Commerce, rather. So he was bringing Rockefeller Initiative people into his administration. So there is no doubt that during that administration, or before, during the transition, Podesta and or Hillary and or Bill kind of brought Joe Biden up to speed on what the hell is going on there and what politically is possible, all right? And then it gets better, because in the last 14 months of the Obama administration, in very, very late 2014, or maybe early 2015, out of nowhere, he yanks Podesta right out of the Center for American Progress, where he was the chairman, CEO, and brings him in as a White House advisor. And nobody knew why. Why in the hell is Podesta suddenly an advisor to Obama in the last 14 months of his administration? About what? They never said. But what it meant is that Podesta and Obama could talk all they wanted about anything they wanted in the White House, no press, no need to disclose anything until the presidential records come out. My speculation is that he brought him in because he knew what the plan was. He knew that Clinton was going to run again, she was going to win, and she was going to be the disclosure president, and they were kind of preparing, or at least discussing the ET issue. What helps me to believe that? The famous and now historical tweet, right? The last day of John Podesta's job as an advisor to Obama, the last thing he does is put out a tweet under his White House account called the regret tweet. My biggest regret for 2015 or 2014 was once again not getting hashtag disclosure of the UFO files. And then he copied Maureen Dowd. And nobody understood why he did that, but I knew. And so,
she was New York Times, right?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you in a second what that's about. But and it was already publicly known he was about to become the campaign chair for who? Hillary Clinton. And so, if nothing is going on here, who in the hell puts out a UFO tweet when they're about to leave the White House and become the co-chair of the next president's campaign unless there's something happening? And so, now, why is this important? Because who was vice president during this whole time, the whole time in the Obama administration? Who was touted as being absolutely tight with Obama? They were Tweedledum. Obama talked about him all the time, talked about he was the last person in the room at every meeting so he could get his view. Absolutely. Biden was brought into the bigger picture while he was vice president under Obama, with Clinton in the cabinet, and Podesta eventually in the White House as an advisor. And so Biden is now, does that mean he's going to say anything? No, he didn't, right? That's not going to be helpful. The plan was there. She was a lock. Everybody knew she was going to win. So there's no need for him to say anything. But then WikiLeaks dumped all the emails out from Podesta's computer with all the UFO references and the references to Tom DeLonge and everything, which wasn't a big deal, but helped to confirm what I believe was going on. And then the FBI got involved and she loses the election. Okay, so that is my answer to your question. Yes, he is aware of the whole Clinton history. He is aware of what she wanted to do. But he has no reason to bring it up. Absolutely no reason to bring it up in the campaign. Why would he? And he didn't. That doesn't mean that he isn't spring-loaded to take action on this, but he does have huge crisis to deal with, and there's going to be a case made by his advisors. You need to push this UFO-ET thing down the line. Let's push it down the line. We've got too many things on the plate. I'm going to be out there on every freaking television and radio show I can get on to make the case to the president that, no, you do not want to do that. You need to get these hearings going. They're ready to go. Get this done. Get disclosure done. At the same time, pursuing these other issues. It's not a big deal, but you cannot kick this one down the road. You've got to get it done, and some very powerful reasons why that's true, why that's the case.
Steve Bassett is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking government, UFOs, disclosure. Steve, when we come back, we only got about a minute to go here. When we come back, I want to get into really disclosure versus confirmation, because I do believe that there is a major difference between the two, and that's something we need to talk about. But before we do, in the next 4 years, I know you have been hopeful for a long time for disclosure. 45-second answer or less. Are we any closer to that mark?
I think we're practically there. I think it's going to happen this spring. I think the principal thing that determines the exact when is the COVID pandemic, the vaccination schedule, and what these variants do. That will determine how soon it is. So I think it's already pushed it back some. I'd like to see no later than late March, maybe early April.
Well,
that's the hearings. That's the hearings. And they'll go on for weeks, and then you get disclosure.
I guess that all depends how long that COVID goes on, because that's going to dictate everything.
COVID could be around a long time, but if the vaccination hits a high level, if they really get a lot of them out, then the ability to hold those hearings, have people there live, all vaccinated, makes it very comfortable. It won't be a big deal.
All right, Steve Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group. It's paradigmresearchgroup.org if you want to check out his website that has literally tens of thousands of UFO articles on there, retaining from stories to politics, everywhere around the world. Steve is one of the most up-to-date individuals on this subject, literally around the world. We're lucky to have him here on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up when we get back, disclosure versus confirmation. What is the difference and what is needed for today's society? Next on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. I'm just going to take a quick break here. We're good for 6 minutes, and I'll be right back, okay?
All righty.
Why not get bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
The party is always on at the Moose Van Coop.
All right, Steve, we got just about 2.5 minutes.
How's your chat room tonight? About average?
Good. They're hanging on out, and it's a good show so far. So how long, you went back to Washington when?
I came back to Washington in September of 2019.
Right.
And ultimately was able to set up an office here at the National Press Building and make a studio and get ready for action. And then the COVID thing hit, and I kind of, slowed things down and, basically tried to stay alive. I'm not somebody that can afford to get that particular virus.
Yeah, up here it's been off and on. We're not locked down or anything, but there's certain restrictions that we do have.
Yeah, you handled it pretty well. Unfortunately, you got caught short on the vaccine situation. I don't understand. I can't believe the United States isn't aggressive, but seriously trying to come up with some arrangement where we can help Canada get vaccines. I don't get that. I mean, do they really? I understand there's not enough to go around, but that doesn't mean we can't be helpful in some way. I mean, it just.
I mean, here's the problem. They got to open up the border, and the border's still open for trade and goods and services, but I mean, we have to be able to open up the border here pretty darn quick. I mean, Canadians love going down there. Americans love traveling up to Alaska. It's something that really needs to get done. But
again, you got Americans coming up there bringing the UK variant strain. You guys could be in trouble overnight. I mean,
but you know what? The problem is though, the person we have in power here, shuts everybody down. And we only got about 10 seconds here, but shuts everybody down and then still allows flights in from all the places where it's coming from.
Well, that's not good.
Exactly. Hold on.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We appreciate earning your listening ears. If you're listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live and Revolution Radio, along with KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Manubrium. Manubrium is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Tonight, we continue on with Paradigm Research Group's Stephen Bassett, his website, paradigmresearchgroup.com. We're talking disclosure, confirmation. Steve, is there a difference between disclosure and that movement and the confirmation movement?
All right. Let's, first of all, let me point out that a very important aspect of activism is language. In order to be successful in an activist movement, you need to have the right language. Bad language can really slow you down. But it gets more complicated because when governments, authorities, when they're abusing power, when they're doing things that are not good, and that's why you have the activist movement, they use language to service their agenda. In other words, they create language and force it on the people and that makes it easier for them to continue to abuse power. And so you've got to counter that. You've got to come up with your good language yourself. So the ET issue has had plenty of that problem. But let's talk about an origin of that term disclosure. Disclosure first emerges in the early 90s, and Stephen Greer is the one that did that. He created the Disclosure Project. That was the first instance in which this term really got associated with the UAV ET issue. But in the context that was being used in the early 90s, including the UFO project name, was in the context of the process of disclosure, what I call small d disclosure, meaning disclosure as a revealing of information, getting information out to the people, the journalists, and what have you, in order to get people to aware of this and get some resolution, right? So it's a revealing. It's a process. It's a improper noun. Later that in the decade, I forget when, late 1990s, 98, 99, I'm not sure when, I introduced another term, but it was confusing. I love the term disclosure, so what I did is I put a capital D in front of it and said, okay, capital D disclosure is not a process, it is an event. It is the name that I gave to the announcement by heads of state of the ET presence, right? And so and I pushed that, and it developed a certain presence. So then we had two terms: capital D disclosure, an event; small d disclosure, a process. Naturally, this created a lot of confusion. Was it a mistake? I don't know. I like the idea of associating the process with the event, because the process is what leads to the event, right? You start off with a small d, you end up with a capital D. But a lot of people got it, but some didn't. And so as we've gotten into this more intense period, and the focus on disclosure has gotten greater, more people are jumping in, the confusion has grown. People are getting, they don't get it. So somebody comes up with confirmation. I forget who threw that out. A couple people thrown that out. And what they're trying to do is to separate the event from the process. So confirmation and capital D disclosure are the same thing, all right? They are exactly the same thing, but there's less confusion with small d disclosure. Confirmation, as it should be described, is the confirming of the ET president by the heads of state. Confirmation is not some newspaper saying they think ETs are here. It's not some lieutenant colonel at the Pentagon putting out a tweet. Confirmation has to come from the head of state. Then it has the power. That's when you get the transition to the post-disclosure world. And so for those that are confused about capital D disclosure, fine. Confirmation. But make it capital C confirmation. This will be a massively significant event, and so it must have a proper noun. So that's my response to that. But that's not the only language problems we have. One of them was UFO. UFO was a huge problem, not for the researchers, but for the activism movement. It was awful. The UFO term is what Ruppelt tossed out there because flying saucer was too descriptive. All right, can't be talking about flying saucers. You've got to be talking about some unknown flying thing. And so from that point on, the whole thing was about unknown flying objects, unidentified flying objects. What does that mean? Right? I mean, you're going to be studying unidentified objects for the next 100 years. And then the term became the target for the ridicule, the debunking and everything. And so once the term was bastardized, which happens frequently in activism, all you had to do was attach UFO to somebody and boom, you've just negated them. You've just eliminated them. They're a kook, right? If that's what you're studying, if that's what you're interested in, you're a kook. And so it became a massive liability. And I started working years ago. Look, we got to get rid of this thing. We got to go to UAV, unidentified aerial phenomena. Well, finally, Hillary Clinton went on Jimmy Kimmel and said, there's a new term. It's called UAV. She was responding to what was going on in the field. She was responding to the efforts to change the language. It was a perfect sign that she was proactive, that she was paying attention. And UAV has become the common term. It's in the language. It's in the bill. Is UAV mean anything different from UFO? No, they are exactly the same. They mean exactly the same, except UAV doesn't have 50 years of ridicule heaped on it, right? It's a fresh start.
A lot of people say the difference between disclosure and confirmation. Disclosure is disclosing everything, what we know about UFOs, what we know about potential ET contact, everything. Whereas confirmation is really helping segregate the UAP phenomena from the extraterrestrial phenomena. Do you believe in that?
It's not totally illogical to go there, but it's not helpful. The disclosure process is a process, okay? In other words, you're gonna understand physics. You just don't learn it in a day. You got to spend years and years and years gathering information. So We have been learning about the ET issue and informing about the ET issue for decades. That is a process, all right? Ultimately, you hope it leads to as much information and understanding as you can get, right? You want as much as possible. So the process you want to go on, and it will go on. It'll go on in the post-disclosure world. Okay. Confirmation is the capital D disclosure, right? Was specifically defined by Paradigm Research Group for a reason. It was to create a goal for the activist movement. You see, an activist movement, if you're going to get support, if people are going to get involved, they're going to take risk or spend money, they need to know where they're going. They need to have a defined end, not some nebulous outcome. And so by defining disclosure as the announcement by heads of states of the extraterrestrial presence, that was obviously very defined. You get that announcement from the heads of state, you've gotten disclosure. That's what we're trying to get. That's what you're investing your time and effort in. That's what your support money is going to get that event, which then leads to other things. So, and every activist movement has got to have that. What was the goal of the Civil Rights Movement? It was the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. That's what they were trying to get, right? Not the ultimate complete fairness and justice to every person of color in the world. That may take 1,000 years, but to get those laws. Suffragette movement was easy. The right to vote. The women got the right to vote. They knew exactly what they were shooting for, and they put a lot of effort and sacrifice into it. This issue needed that as well. Okay. Confirmation is the same thing. It is the formal acknowledgement. Now, if someone wants to define disclosure as letting all of the information out about the UFO issue, hell, that may go on for the rest of this century. It's not defined. It's a nebulous outcome. What you want is you want to get in order to get that information, in order to get much more information, to really get deep into this issue, particularly what the government knows, you have to have the confirmation announcement. You have to have capital D disclosure. Until that, you ain't going any further. You're stopped right there. And so I hope that helps to confirm it. I want all the information, sure. Am I going to get that overnight? No. But if we can get the governments to finally at least acknowledge they're here, I assure you our chances of learning so much more will be dramatically improved.
But I have to ask you, Steve, in regards to that, okay, there are many out there in the UFO world that I've talked to privately, and they have told me point blank that they do not feel that the mainstream public is ready for aliens. They're ready for UFOs, UAP, but they're not ready for alien contact yet. And that's the big one. Do you believe that?
That's their opinion. That's their opinion. I think they're wrong. I think they're not even close to being. They're so wrong, they're not even wrong. Nothing points to that. Absolutely nothing. My God. You look at what the human race has put up with and had to deal with. You look at the complexities of the modern world. This idea that, the idea of aliens being real, we're all going to go crazy. But let me put the point this way. The highest grossing genre in all of film is extraterrestrials. 300 movies, maybe 350 movies with extraterrestrials in them. They've been seen by billions of people. All right, they're huge. The number one grossing movie in the history has got extraterrestrials in it. The number two movie in history has got extraterrestrials in it. Most of the top 20 have got extraterrestrials in them. The idea of extraterrestrials is now universal and global. Not only that, these movies are so good. They just don't show us. It's not the 1950s and the day the Earth stood still. We're going up into space in starships. We're visiting planets. We're seeing all kinds of extraterrestrial types, and we take it almost like normal. And so this idea that finally learning there's actually real extraterrestrials after 350 movies and books and documentaries is suddenly going to upset us is ludicrous. Okay? It serves the truth embargo. The government put this out years ago. They put it out in Brookings and they put it out in other ways. Not to scare us so much, but to scare the people in the government. You see, in the early days of the truth embargo, their biggest concern was not us. Their biggest concern was all the people in government that did know about it, getting a little twitchy and deciding to sneak on over to the New York Times with a big story. Or, meet some Washington Post reporter in a garage in Roslyn, Virginia. In other words, these people may, not lose the picture, and so they wanted to frighten them. They wanted to say, "Look, Colonel, look, Doctor so and so, if you let this out, if you don't stick to your non-disclosure agreements, and this gets out, religion will collapse, the economy will collapse. It will be unbelievable. Plus, we'll put you in jail for the rest of your life." It was propaganda to serve the truth embargo. There was no substance for it. And this Brookings report referred to that anthropologist, I forget her name, talking about these early civilizations and how they went crazy when the Europeans showed up. What's her name? I can't remember it. It was like that, like it was that time. My God, it was 1960, right? We were about to go to the moon, for crying out loud. And now, 50 years later, people are still saying that? Please, no. I ask those people, look, go watch a good sci-fi movie. Go on Amazon and watch the Expanse, probably the best sci-fi series ever made. And go out into space and get used to it, because that's the future, and ETs are real, and believe me, we'll be just fine.
Do you believe then that even the politicians in Washington, D.C. are ready to wake up to the fact that if they knew what Lou Elizondo knows or Chris Mellon knows, that they would be able to actually handle it? I mean, we are talking about the second biggest story in humankind's history next to Jesus Christ coming down from the heavens.
Yeah, well, now a strong Christian is going to go with Jesus as number one. I'm a secular man, and so I can make a case that the disclosure will be number one. But I'm not going to split hairs here. Look, the politicians are pretty much worried about two things, and neither one of them is extraterrestrials: raising money and getting elected. And so they will do what they have to do to ensure those two things happen. And if engaging the ETs is going to endanger them politically, they're not going to do it. It doesn't matter what they think about ETs. And by and large, for most of the last 70 years, engaging ET was not something you did if you were a politician. And very few did. And that was a success of the truth embargo. The truth embargo had to convince lots of people, journalists, academics, politicians, don't go there. It's just not a good idea. Just don't go there, right? You don't need to go there. It will deal with it. And the politicians bought it. And all the ridicule helped to make that happen. What's happening now is you're starting to see that more and more politicians are realizing we can go there. And once they feel they can go there, and you couple that with the prestige that would come from being part of the most profound event in human history, well, suddenly it becomes an asset. Marco Rubio figured that out. Tucker Carlson figured that out. Avi Loeb figured that out. So as we move forward, you're going to see more and more people coming to realize, what's going to be a problem for me is if I don't get on the disclosure train, it leaves, and I'm standing on the platform with my hands in my pockets, surrounded by press that want to know what happened to you. I like that. That's a good line. I'm going to use that again.
You totally should, because that stunned me. Like, I don't know what to ask now, but I'll figure something out.
Yeah, no. It's a question of history. The tides of history and activism are, again, it's like climbing a huge mountain to get to somewhere that's on the other side. It takes forever to get to the top of the mountain, and then once you hit that, boom, you put on a pair of skis, slide right down to the finish line. Takes no time at all. It's pretty much like that. We're at the top of the mountain.
But the announcement hasn't been made.
No. Right? Again, but the goal is the announcement. That's the goal. That's what's on the other side of the mountain. But we've now pretty much gotten to the top. Now all we have to do is to ski down and pick up the prize.
Okay.
So it's going to happen fast.
Is the mainstream helping, though? All of these television shows, all of these documentaries that seem to be coming out recently, all aimed at the mainstream. They're not worried about the UFO community. They're worried about the mainstream.
Yeah, the UFO community doesn't need to see more documentaries. They need to get to the general public. And yeah, the mainstream has been fantastic. Again, we would already be 3 years into the post-disclosure world if the election had gone another way, right? During the Clinton campaign, I came to Washington, distributed the citizen hearing on disclosure record, all 30 hours, to every member of Congress, and then got my public relations person together, and we started hitting up all the top reporters in Washington about the Clinton ET connection. Hey, this is a big story. She's running for president, and there's a big connection to the ET here, ET issue. Well, they got into it. They wrote some stories. They contacted Clinton. They contacted Podesta. They got no response because they couldn't talk about it. And then stories got rolling. Well, ultimately, there was 400 stories written about the connection between her husband, Podesta, and the ET issue. 400 stories. I take responsibility for that. If I hadn't have done what I'd done, it wouldn't happen, right? So is that mainstream support? You bet it is. 400 stories. And since the To the Stars Academy announced, as I said earlier, I'm up to 700 stories in mainstream media, not alternative UFO media, mainstream media, regarding the TTSA and subsequent events. That's coverage, right? And then you've got your docs, you've got your History Channel, you've got Ancient Aliens, 500 of those. They replay them every week. The public is being drenched in this subject. The only reason it hasn't coalesced and we've had the damn disclosure is because of a rather unusual political event of 2016, unprecedented in our lifetime. Never seen anything like it, and I've lived through 13 presidents, that pretty much absorbed the political class and the journalistic class and created a lot of distraction. And then, as that's rounding up, COVID turns up. And so it's been an unusual 4 years. However, I assure you the ETs are still here, okay? They haven't gone away. And the media is ready to jump on this issue big time. And when they really get going, the articles have been coming out faster than I can log them into my computer.
Steve Bassett, we have about 3 minutes before we have to go to break. Question coming from Nick here on Twitter, who is asking, Steve, where does disclosure stop and national security begin?
In the early years, 47 on, during the entire Cold War, which they didn't know was going to last that long. The early the guys in our intelligence community and military in the late 40s and early 50s were very much thinking there would be a third world war and would be nuclear. I mean, they knew it was going to be bad, and they decided to classify this issue and contain it, including even embargoing it in a sense, for national security reasons. So in the beginning, national security completely trumped disclosure, absolutely. And that did not change throughout that entire 44 years. Once the Cold War ended, it started to shift. That's why Rockefeller went to see Clinton's White House in 1993. He said, hey, Cold War's over. Let's party and let's finally get this information out. It's time to bring it out. Clinton made an effort, got stonewalled by the Air Force and the DOD, and other things happened. So over the 30 years, since then, what you're seeing is the relationship between national security and disclosure has been shifting. And now I can make a case, would love to anybody listen, that disclosure is now in the service to national security. For the basis of national security, we really need disclosure. And I'd love to make that argument in front of any college any college auditorium, but they won't let me near any college auditoriums.
Why not?
So that's how it shifted. It is flipped. It is flipped from 47 to 2017.
Why won't they allow you at any college auditorium?
Because I'm a UFO. I'm an extraterrestrial, exopolitical activist. Who allows that on their campus? It's still. Now, let me tell you something. Of all the institutions out there, the one institution that has had the worst record, that has been the most spineless, has been academia. I mean, they're in the dark ages, right? Tucker Carlson is out in front of them by a mile. So academia is going to may never make it on the disclosure train, in spite of Avi Loeb, who is the chairman of astronomy at Harvard. So when the disclosure train leaves, almost all of academia is going to be on the station. And let me tell you, those college presidents and those college professors and heads of departments are going to have some really tough questions to answer. Namely, how in the hell did 1 million professors for the last 70 years not get the ET presence? We were just told they'd been around since at least 47, and you missed it, right? and I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. Okay.
I don't
But
blame
they still
you.
have time. They still have time, but I'm not, other than Avi Loeb, I'm not expecting too many of them to jump on.
Stephen, I'm going to get you to pause right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have one more hour left with the director of the Paradigm Research Group, Mr. Stephen Bassett. ParadigmResearchGroup.com is his website. We'll be back right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Forwarded, so I don't know why I even say anything.
I'm sorry, I had to turn your mic up.
Oh, yeah, it's .org, but I have the .com domain, too. So
I
it's all
thought I
forwarded.
said .org. I apologize.
It doesn't matter. I've got them all.
Okay. All right.
I got all the key ones. No big deal.
All right. Little Davey Altman, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Hope Florida's good for you. And, we love you, Little Davey Altman. And to Heather and Stephanie, hanging out in Vegas, sitting at a bar in Caesar's Palace right now, just admiring my beard on their phone screen. Well, I'm jealous of you two for partying without me right now. Even though I'm there on your phone, you're partying without me because I need Vegas bad and stat. But
I'm missing it.
But we love you. We love you, Heather and Stephanie, in Vegas right now. So have a good time without me again and without Steve.
Every year I would go with my friend to watch the Super Bowl, and usually at the Venetian, and eat buffets, and I miss that.
Yes. I just miss everything about it. Hey, Jeremy Womack, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I'm going to take the time right now to let you all know that one of our show sponsors is Mighty Moose Beard Oil. As you can see, I have a beard here, and this is how I take care of it with Mighty Moose Beard Oil. Go to MightyMooseBeard.com. All prices are in Canadian dollars. You are going to get a discount by saying that you used promo code SOR 2019, so make sure you do. So this is what you do, real simple. You just grab that, drop it into your hands like so, and then rub it into your hands and massage it in. That's it, man. It's that easy to take care of your beard. No chemical compounds. Everything's natural. And for you ladies out there, see, like I have nice hair. You just rub the rest into your hair. That's it, man. That's it. MightyMooseBeard.com. You tell Gary the Dutchman that I sent you over by using promo code SOR 2019, and he's going to take good care of you. He's going to take good care of you. That's it. Hey, Gorgeous Larry, it does work on butt hair if you want to use it for that, my friend. Why not? This one smells like a nice day hanging out in the forest. I've also got the winter blend here, which is kind of pepperminty. You know, that one smells nice. There's a new scent coming out here soon.
Yeah, it's Peter Robbins.
So that's where you go. Mighty Moose Beard.
One person's name and Richard Dolan. Oh, that's Richard Dolan.
Good old Richard Dolan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. You're doing your thing.
I have this. I don't. I'll show it to you. I have this poster that is. I'm holding in front of the camera. I have this poster, which is. It is from the premiere showing of the Spielberg Taken series.
Right.
When they held the premiere at the Reagan Building in Washington, D.C., right?
Right.
And they had these posters, and I got one of them, and I had it signed, and it's signed by Antonio Naas.
Oh, there's Daniel
Thomas
Sheehan.
Vitale, Danny Sheehan, David Jacobs, Larry Bryant, Richard Dolan, Bud Hopkins, Peter Robbins,
right,
and myself. I've been thinking about selling it in order to raise some money, but we'll see.
You should.
But that's a one of a kind.
That is a nice one. That is a nice one.
I may have the only two surviving posters from that premiere showing. This was 2002. It was about a week and a half after John Podesta made his famous remarks at the National Press Club about releasing the UFO files.
Right.
And that was when they announced the Coalition for Freedom of Information, which was funded by the Sci-Fi Channel, which then held the premiere at the Reagan Building. And of course, the Sci-Fi Channel was behind the series Taken by Spielberg. So you see it all kind of happening together there. And there was things afoot, but well, whatever happened anyway. So I got that and got people to sign it.
Do you believe?
So I don't know.
Do you believe Reagan did tell Spielberg that when the White House premiering of E.T. that you don't know how close you came to the real thing or something along those lines?
I think it's possible. I think I may have read that Spielberg denied it, but I'm not certain.
Mm-hmm.
But if Spielberg has never denied it, that would be a good possibility that it is true.
Right.
But if he has denied it, even if he denied it, doesn't mean it's not true. Spielberg has played it fairly careful when it comes to the, how would you say, the ETH and the real deal. Yeah.
All right, my friend, we're coming back in like 5 seconds here, so bear with us here. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter @Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram @Spaced Out Radio Show. Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group is here tonight. And Stephen, I want to start things off with a question from our good friend Greco up in Toronto. Apparently he has one of the finest Greek restaurants up there, and he still hasn't invited us for dinner yet. You know, that's a little bit disgusting on his part. But we're going to hit up his question here right off the bat. Steve, do you think the United States government recognizes that UFOs and aliens is the only subject no government, religion, or society can counter once that box is open, thus leading to a careful, slow disclosure?
Well, we've had a pretty careful, slow disclosure. I mean, we're in our 74th year. And that's a process. Remember, that's the disclosure process has been going on in the modern era since 47. So that's 74 years. And so now what we need is the next step is to get the confirmation of the ET presence. And then globally, in other words, everybody in the world knows the ETs are actually here. And then with that done, the government is in a position to start telling us what it knows. Not everything right away. And of course, the engagement of the issue will be intense. In other words, all bets are off in terms of the academics and research institutes and everybody else. And they'll review all the citizen science work, and then they'll review other stuff. And then we'll just totally throw ourselves into it. And we'll learn more. All right. But right now we're stuck. There's only so far we can go without confirmation. All right. And so the fact is the ETs are here. They're not going away. And whether we're comfortable with it or not, whether we like it or not, the human race is going to have to deal with it. And the politicians are going to have to deal with it. But what else is new? Who wanted World War II? We had to deal with it. Who wanted the plague of 1918, 1919? We've had to deal with a lot of stuff. And that comes with being alive. It comes with being part of history. So, the idea that there's anything we can't deal with, I'm not so sure there is such a thing. I think of the things we've gone through. I assure you, the ET announcement, the confirmation, is trivial compared to what the human race has had to deal with over the last 10,000 years. It's not that big a deal. It was made to seem that way because the government had very powerful reasons why they needed to contain it. And that was because, and it didn't have to be that way, We didn't have to have a Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union didn't have to build tens of thousands of nuclear weapons. We could have said, hey, the Nazi powers have been defeated. We've split up the territories. Let's put those bombs away. That's the last thing we want. Let's try to develop a world without war. We could have done that. We didn't. We went nuts. We built 80,000 nuclear weapons. That's why it was contained. Not so much that we couldn't deal with it, but rather having that come out with all those weapons sitting there ready to launch. They couldn't predict all of the possible unintended consequences. It was a variable added to the equation that they could not calculate. Would this happen from that and then something else? And next thing you know, they're launching missiles. And so better to be safe than sorry. It was bad enough as it was. It's about nuclear weapons, which is why the ETs escalated their engagement in 47. It's about nuclear weapons in terms of why that we had to contain the issue so strongly, right? And once the weapons were gone, then the story changed. The basis changed. And we've been slowly working our way from that point to where we could disclose. Is the world safe now? No. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists now has the Doomsday Clock at 100 seconds to midnight. It's the closest it's ever been. What they're saying is the risk of nuclear war is higher than it's ever been. So one could make the case that, well, announcing the ET presence could be that destabilizing variable and launch a nuclear war. Except the difference is, as of 2021, the people that are paying attention to the world right now are saying, look, we are in deep trouble. We have all big problems every bit as big as the nuclear risk, okay? We have screwed everything up. We're wiping out the environment. Population is overwhelming. The potential for human suffering is vast. All of that could trigger a nuclear war. And so announcing the ET presence, opening up the path to maybe extraordinary technologies currently sequestered, and the refocusing of people's attention on something greater than themselves may be just a ticket to back away from the edge of the volcano. Though there will still be those, oh, no, we can't do anything. We can't do anything to create a problem. Well, if that's true, why in the hell are we assassinating high-level people overseas with drones or firing cruise missiles into nations, right? If we're worried about triggering a nuclear war. So I'm saying that the ET disclosure is far less dangerous now than some of the other actions nations are taking that could trigger a nuclear war. So I'm saying let's get on with the truth and let's get on with history as opposed to continuing the 10,000 years of bad behavior.
Justin is asking, why, Stephen, do you think big tech is suppressing UFO or UAP info? YouTube or Google searches lead to mainstream garbage.
Now, who is, you said
Justin.
An acronym. Yeah, but what is, who's containing it?
Big tech.
Oh, big tech. Look, there's a huge amount of information about ET issues on YouTube, documentaries and everything else. So there's no lack of that. I don't see any problem there. That doesn't mean in a particular instance something disappears or gets. Remember, YouTube is constantly changing. Things can go away. But I'm looking at enough stuff to say, believe me, the social media, my God, disclosure is even now prominent on social media. It's got plenty of presence. Not a problem there. It's okay.
All right, let's get to a question from Kim, who is asking you, Steve, who has the evidence that all of this is happening right now?
Well, wait a minute. What is happening?
Disclosure, are we in contact? Where is the evidence? Who has
if you're talking about the evidence for the presence of extraterrestrials, it's overwhelming. We could spend weeks talking about it. We don't have time for that tonight. It's out there. She just needs to go, look. The evidence it's a fact. It's an absolutely proven fact. The disclosure process, of course, the process is obvious. Stuff is being researched and revealed all the time. But the capital D disclosure issue, that happening, or the confirmation happening, the evidence for that, in order to understand that, because it's not being stated matter-of-factly by the parties involved, you go read those 700 articles. If she goes read those 700 articles on my website and follows just the mainstream coverage, in other words, what is in the mainstream press, which gives you a sense of where it is in the fundamental public domain, she'll probably be able to figure out, oh yeah, I see now. I see what's going on. That is how I'm coming to these conclusions. I have not been told by an insider. I have no special source that says, oh yeah, hearings in April. This is my assessment based upon my experience of what's going down. I will change that assessment if I'm convinced otherwise, but nobody has made an effort to do that. And so therefore, I'm going to put that out there, and I'm inviting people to join in. In other words, hey, put some tweets out to your members of Congress or to some news people. Start talking about disclosure on Twitter or on Facebook. Get involved. If you want disclosure, it'd be a good time to start saying that on social media. If you want hearings, start talking about hearings. All right, it's okay. It's not going to hurt anybody. In other words, the more they hear people getting involved, the more they hear people wanting to go there, the more likely they will go there. I'm not saying it's absolutely necessary. I think the stage is being set regardless. But the number of people that are starting to get excited about the possibility that this is finally going to end, that at least the embargo is going to end, is growing all the time. And I see it on the internet. It's out there, and it's going to continue to grow. A couple of more significant events turning up, like this recent one of the CIA releasing, finally responding to Bragaglia's FOI after 3 years, which was absolutely intentional on the part of the CIA. All that stuff is going to excite people, and you're going to have more of that. So, again, that's how I see it. I may be wrong, but I feel good that I'm right.
Stephen, in your opinion, how do you feel about the coverage, the mainstream media, outside of the New York Times? The mainstream media has covered this topic. Have they
in the last 3 years? It's doing a great job. And Clinton campaign, a fabulous job. And as I say, I've got almost 12,000 articles going back to 1997, and that's maybe a third of the total number of mainstream articles on the subject since 97. It's probably more in the 30,000 range. But I didn't go to libraries and go through microfiche. All my articles are linked by web searches. But what the mainstream media has not done, and that's the truth embargo. In other words, they sort of understood. Cover it, write it up. Something happens, write it up, but don't investigate it. In other words, don't do what Woodward and Bernstein did with respect to the break-in at the Democratic National Committee office in Watergate. They just didn't write it up and say somebody broke in. They said, Bernstein, you and Woodward get out there and find out what the hell is going on. And of course, that led to the end of Nixon. That's what the mainstream media hasn't done. They haven't gone to the Pentagon and said, look, things are not adding up here. They haven't tried to seek out inside sources. Of course, that would be dangerous for the sources. They haven't gone Woodward and Bernstein. They've never done that. Now, recently, it's getting a little better. You've got some new organizations, new journalism turning up that they have less of a problem with that. So if you go to the war zone and go to the drive section, there's some very sharp guys that are doing some serious digging. Washington Post is not doing what they're doing. The Debrief is another strong site that's starting to dig. Tom McMillan is doing some heavy research. And so we're starting to see the kind of investigation that was always called for. The New York Times obviously did some investigation to vet the articles that were given, the information given to them by the To the Stars Academy. Has the New York Times gone Woodward and Bernstein on this issue? No, they haven't. They're playing it down the middle. They're continuing to cover, but they're not going after the deep story. They'll have to explain that. I think to some degree the New York Times has probably figured out that this thing is about to wrap, and it would be kind of, what's the point of attacking it now? It's going to come out anyway, and so they're just covering it, and they're writing occasional stories. But that's the difference. Coverage is one thing, investigation is another. By not investigating the story, not really going after it. For instance, the nuclear weapons tampering. As soon as they got the information on the nuclear weapons tampering in a normal world, that is a massive story. You go out, you got New York Times reporters trying to find Robert Salas and the other witnesses, heading them aside, trying to get them off the record, whatever, digging, sending people out to the damn base, trying to find witnesses. No. Nuclear weapons tampering by unknown craft over the base, because that is just not, that's it. They went as far as they were going to go. So, yes, all of the mainstream journalists, the top end, republishers and so forth, are going to have to answer some tough questions after disclosure. Why did you do it that way? Why did you hold back? And in fact, there's a lot of tough questions that are going to be asked, and that's one of the reasons disclosure is a little hard to get. Because who wants to face down hugely significant, tough questions about their participation in an historical process? And so for a lot of people, it's like, I just hope I die first. In other words, wait till I die, and then, hey, tell the world. But hey, tough, okay? You'll get over it. You'll be okay.
You know, a prime example of that, Stephen, I don't even know if you know this, but up here in Canada, all the mainstream media played the UFO videos from the U.S. Navy.
That's right.
They announced it, that the United States Navy has officially released these unidentified aerial phenomena videos. Ooh, look how cool this is. Did you know that not a single Canadian reporter asked any politician or the Prime Minister in Ottawa, what's Canada's role in the UFOs? Not a single reporter. And I found that so disingenuous of the job that you're saying this. Look what the U.S. is playing with, and it got great ratings on the news.
Sure,
it did.
Well, look, the truth embargo was heavily maintained during the Cold War. There was no publisher, or editor, or television owner that was going to argue with the national security state that the public's right to know trumps your need to avoid a nuclear war, okay? I mean, hey, nuclear war, if it happens, it happens. We need to get this out. They all fell in line. The argument was powerful. I mean, hey, we almost had a nuclear war like on 6 occasions. I know about 2. I think there's another one I think I know about, and I know there's 3 or 4 more. If you want to really depress yourself, go search them out. They're known. We're lucky we're here. It's a friggin' miracle that we're here at all. And so I get it. By the time the Cold War was over, it didn't have to last 44 years, but it did. The truth embargo was institutionalized. It was virtually what was done. And so you didn't have to send out a bunch of emails or threaten anybody. They just knew. That's the way it is. You don't ask questions. You don't go beyond a certain. You write it up, but you don't go bother the politicians about it. So when some reporter in the White House briefing room in the U.S. brought up the ET issue during the Clinton campaign, it was big news. The response was kind of not a big deal, but just the fact they brought the question up in the room. I've been in that room many times, right? I was in there. I could have asked a question, but I wasn't a journalist. And if I had, it would have been an extreme violation of protocol. So I kept my mouth shut, but I was in the briefing room. So it was institutionalized. And so that since 1991, the truth embargo, with respect to the academia, with respect to the journalists, with respect to politicians, it just has continued on its own momentum. In other words, this is how it is. Don't ask questions. However, what's different between before 1991 is the amount of energy that the government was putting into the truth embargo started to ebb. They just were putting less effort into it. In other words, it was kind of like, look, we're going to ride this momentum, and eventually, of course, it's going to end, and we'll have to announce it. So that was helpful, right? They weren't putting the energy into the truth embargo they were during the Cold War, which opened the door for a lot of people to get involved, like me.
Greco is asking, can any sort of aliens come down here and help the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup? I'll take that one, Steve. Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell. The Toronto Maple Leafs will not win a Stanley Cup for at least another 50 years. If we're lucky, longer. 67, my friend. We're getting way too close to that century mark to allow the Leafs to win again. I'm sorry, had to go there, Steve, but that was an important question that we had to ask.
After we have open contact, I'm sure the question will be asked, maybe, what do you think about our sports? They make any sense to you? I mean, what, have you moved beyond that? I mean, do you have sports on your planet? Hey, look, I don't think we could have gotten through the last century, and this century, frankly, without sports.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one thing that kept us from all losing our friggin' mind.
Very true. And, as someone who got to experience Vancouver in 2010 for the Olympics and watched the entire country kind of come together at our little piece of the area of the world, I'm a big fan of the Olympics, but that's just me. Waste of money, waste a lot of money, but it's worth it to see the smiles on those athletes' faces.
Yeah, when I came to D.C., when I came back to D.C., remember I relocated back in September, I got to see my very first baseball game. I had a friend of mine who had tickets, good tickets, and he said, look, let's go to the game. And the game was the what they call it, the wild card playoff game, one game and done, right? To get you get to the thing. And I think it was Washington against maybe Toronto. Could have been Toronto, whatever. Anyway, and so I got to go to a game. I had never been to a full game. We're sitting up, behind third base in a great location, and it was one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. It was an incredible game. The Washington team won it in the last inning, and then, of course, they went on to win the World Series, but I saw the beginning of that. And about the seventh inning, a guy hits a foul ball, and it's going up in the air, and it's coming right toward me, literally. But I hadn't been to a game in my life. I just sat there and watched it. I didn't even think about catching it. And as it's getting almost to my chest, a guy on my left reaches over with his hand. But before he can get the ball, my friend who bought the ticket reaches and grabs the ball, and then this other guy grabs his hand, and my friend pulls the ball out, and he has this ball, a ball that was about to hit me in the chest. And we won the game. It was one of the best nights of my life. I'll always remember it. And then I was able to watch the Washington team win the World Series, watch that whole series at Buffalo Wild Wings, of course.
I have to say, as much as I'm a Canadian guy, not to keep it on sports here, but we are getting close to a break at the top of the hour. As much as I'm a Canadian guy and I love my hockey, I do. I hate what's happened to the NHL these days because it's not hockey anymore. But give me a chance, if God gave me a chance to play one professional sport one day, I would choose Major League Baseball 9 times out of 10 over hockey. There's just something so pure about baseball outside of the instant replay now. But oh gosh, the ballpark, the smell, the grass, everything. Just something special.
It's a unique game. Unlike football, hockey, basketball, baseball is like, I don't know, it's like going to an outdoor festival that goes on for many, many hours, and you just kind of hang around and things happen and you chill and you can eat a little something and all that. It's like a lifestyle almost. It's just very different and very slow. Other games, bam, bam, boom, bang, goon. I get it, okay? Not baseball. There's a little slam bang there. And so if that is something that gets to you, it becomes a big deal for you, all right? Mm-hmm. So it's unique. I hope we keep it. I hope it doesn't go away. It's the unique. There's no other sport like it. The only other sport that would be close to it would be cricket, except that cricket isn't just a few hours in the park. It's days.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Does anybody know even how a cricket match ends?
Nobody knows. But you can go out there. You can go watch the game. You can meet somebody, fall in love, court them, and get engaged and marry them before the game ends.
This is very true. This is very true. They could have a 90-day fiance episode in between one cricket match. And now I'm looking at all the Brits in my chat room who are speaking up here. Cricket is better than baseball, full stop. And all this. I don't know. I just love baseball and the purity of it and the fact that, trying to catch a home run ball or a foul ball or something along those lines, heckling the pitchers and whatever. Sure. It's a beautiful game. Steve, we got you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio. It's a show that's flown on by so far because we got hour 3 coming up next on the mighty Spaced Out Radio. Stephen Bassett from Paradigm Research Group, this website, paradigmresearchgroup.org. And Brian in the chat room, let's go Mets, Yankees suck. Come on. 27 World Series titles, Brian. I'm West Coast Canada. I'm a Yankees fan. I know where the winning goes. It's in the Bronx. And we're going to continue. Back to aliens, not baseball, on Spaced Out Radio next. All right, Steve, I'm just going to take a quick break here. I'll be right back.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, space travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter @SpacedOutRadio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
The party is always on at the Moose Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is where you want to be when visiting Canada's West Coast. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose cranks up the rock while serving some of the best rated food in the city. The menu starts at $6.95. Why party anywhere else in Vancouver when the Moose is right there? Get your horns up and rock with the Moose, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, Bumblefoot...
All right, Steve, we got just a couple of minutes here. You can walk around, do what you got to do.
I'm walking. Can I show you the rest of my studio?
Sure. Love to see it.
Okay, so this is the 8x12 mural I have of the Capitol here.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And then over here, you can't see a lot of it, but I've also got an 8x12 mural of the White House, which I'll also use for backdrop for Serenity.
Very nice.
And then I got a complete bookshelf wall, which I'll use as a backdrop. So I can kind of rotate around, get some different backdrops.
That's beautiful, man.
No green screen for me. So I love the office. I just took a long time to set up.
Looks great. Looks fantastic.
I'm looking forward to, boy, when the day comes and I can have some guests. See, because I'm here in the National Press building, if there's, I might be able to get a journalist that's never talked about the issue or some political guy to come in and interview, but I have to establish myself a lot more than I have before I can do that.
Right.
But that would be pretty cool, right?
That would be awesome. Awesome.
I'm right here, man. I'm 2 blocks from the White House. Maybe I'll get the president, get Biden over here.
Yeah, sure.
That would launch my podcast, wouldn't it?
Come to my dungeon. Let me show you some UFO stuff.
Yeah, come on in, Joe.
Who needs a Pentagon? We got Steve Bassett's office.
The possibilities are intriguing. There have been days, though, during this coronavirus when I wasn't sure we were ever going to get there.
Right.
Just,
it's
been difficult.
I hear you. Our YouTube crowd, I want to remind you that at bottom of the hour, we're going to go to our new feature that we do on Tuesdays when we don't join the shift in Vancouver. We're going to go to the Magic 8 Ball, so get your questions ready, and then we'll get to the news and the SOR Newswire and the thought of the day. So stay tuned. Here's hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Manubrium. Manubrium is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce UFO lobbyist Stephen Bassett from the Paradigm Research Group. His website, paradigmresearchgroup.com. Stephen, we're going to start off with a question right now from Cloudy with a Chance of UFOs in our YouTube chat. And they are asking, Stephen, have you ever personally had a UFO sighting?
No. I had at the Laughlin conference once, they said that they tended to show up for that conference. I was out there on the waterfront. We were all looking up, and there was something in the sky that was hanging there, and it was not clear what it was. I got a little glimpse of it, but that's hardly what I consider a sighting. So, no, I've never had a sighting.
Do you wish you had?
Probably. I think it would make much difference. I've never had contact either, which a lot of people ask me about that. I'm kind of glad that I haven't. Not that there's anything wrong about that. It's just that having never had that, I'm not in this. I didn't get into this field because I had a sighting or had contact. It's very emotional. So I'm somewhat removed from it. In other words, I'm able to look at it without that component, right? I know there's ETs here. I don't have to see one to know that. And so, I am a disclosure activist who also lobbies, but I'm a disclosure activist. I'm an exopolitical activist. I'm in this, doing this because of the political implications, not because I saw an ET once or something and got all excited. And that makes it a little easier, I think, for me to stay in a zone I need to be in to deal with, politicians and journalists and so forth.
Why do you believe?
The evidence is confirming. I mean, why does somebody find somebody guilty at the end of a trial? They've heard all the evidence and they've come to the conclusion it's beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence for the ET presence exceeds anything you might get in the trial. I mean, it's just extraordinary. So if you look at the evidence, you come to a verdict. Now, if you don't look at the evidence, okay, then you're just speculating or guessing. But the evidence is massive, and that's the way it is. I mean, people want to say, no, there is no evidence. Well, fine. But the evidence is convincing. And by the way, I don't believe. That's another language issue. People should not believe in extraterrestrials. They should be either convinced that they are here or not convinced that they are here. This is not a religion. There is no Church of Ufology. And so that is a term. It's not a big deal, but that term serves the truth embargo, because the authorities will use that. The debunkers will use that. He's a believer, because it associates you with religion, and that undermines the science. So I don't believe. I'm quite convinced. I'm also convinced there's protons, neutrons, and the moon only faces the Earth. I mean, these are established truths based on the evidence.
All right, that leads into a question from Discovery here at our YouTube channel, who is asking, why are you so involved with this then? Why are you an activist? What makes you do what you do?
People that choose the activist path are interesting. It's not usually casually done. And it's hard to explain. But I had that sensibility even when I was fairly young. I joined the newspaper in college, wrote some activist anti-war columns, got, hate mail, and enjoyed the hate mail. So I think something was telling me that's kind of where you're at. Now, why someone is at a certain place when they're 17, 18, 19, who the hell knows? I mean, you're raised, you watch things happen, and you develop. But I didn't act on it. In other words, I didn't say, wow, that's where I seem to be. Let me go there. No, I went elsewhere. And I did not become an activist. I did not get engaged. I did march a few times in the anti-war movement. I marched in the civil rights, but nothing serious. But I was dabbling. So it was kind of there. It's in my nature. I was never successful at making large sums of money. If I was, I guess I'd probably ended up just being a businessman and being wealthy. It didn't happen. I wasn't successful at a lot of things. So ultimately, when I decided, hey, it's time to get with it, pick something, I ended up picking an issue that had a lot of implications. I was interested in it. And hey, at some point in life, you don't have a lot of time left. You're going, hey, pick something you're interested in. Just don't do something to get a paycheck and pay the rent. And I picked this. And once I got into it by going to work at John Mack's operation in Cambridge, it was there that I understood something very important. The evidence was there. The ET presence was proven. There was plenty to learn. And so why wasn't it out there? Why wasn't it totally accepted? Why weren't they teaching it at universities and so forth? And I realized it wasn't the evidence. It was the politics. That the embargo was a political decision, not a scientific decision. A political decision to embargo this issue, just like they made a political decision to embargo Cuba, right? It wasn't about science. And so you could pile science up all day long. It wasn't going to change anything. You want to end the truth embargo, you want to get the truth out, you got to go solve the political problem, which means you've got to figure out how to get journalists and academics and, journalists and politicians to move towards ending the truth embargo. And once I got into it, it was intense and interesting and engaging and fulfilling. even without any money. And I was able to use talents that I had developed over the years that really I couldn't use before. And so that's how it happens. But I think an activist needs to be somebody who wants to make changes. It needs to be somebody that when they see injustice, they don't like it. And there's plenty of injustice out there, and you can only engage so much. And I was of that mindset. The injustice in this world bothered me a great deal. And so, but what do? I mean, there's a lot of movements you could join. I ended up getting involved in this. And that's the best way I can describe it. It's not easy to describe it. I remember in college trying to figure out what am I going to major in. I had no idea. It was awful. I was guessing. It was terrible. So it took me to the age of 49 to sit down and make a decision. Okay, this is what I want to do. Better late than never.
You glad you did it?
I have no regrets.
All right, question coming from, where is it here? I just saw it a second ago. There it is, from Andrew in the United Kingdom. Steve, what do you know about the results of the metal that TTSA bought off of Linda Moulton Howe?
All we know is that it was provided to the Army under a CRADA, a Coopera Research and Development arrangement, and they're looking at it. They're looking at a number of metals, some of which came from the public sector, some of which may have come internally, and they confirm that they're looking at stuff in that FOIA response that just happened to be released at this time. That was no accident. But we don't have any yet. They're not ready to give us real clear assessments of that material, but they're sure as hell interested in how it works. Some of it may prove to be extraterrestrial, some will not. But in terms of what that material could really be capable of and how it may play a role in the creation of craft, we're not going to get that info until after disclosure.
Looking at disclosure, Ufology 2021, which is the title of this show that we're doing tonight, what do you see happening in the timeline within the next 10 and a half months?
Again, I'm going to be making the strongest case I can that Biden absolutely must not stand in the way of congressional hearings that are being put together by Christopher Mellon and Luis Elizondo. Let that go forward. Don't stifle it. Encourage it. Maybe not publicly, but behind the scenes. Once those hearings get going, I hope it's this spring, late March or April is fine. Disclosure follows. Confirmation follows. There's no way that tens of millions of people around the world, maybe hundreds of millions, are going to watch the kind of evidence that can be put in front of a committee by members of our military, some of which we know, some of which we don't know, and not be going, holy moly, this is it, right? Hell, the citizen hearing the disclosure I held, 42 witnesses, some of which were military. Almost the entire panel said, hey, I came in here, I didn't know what to think, and I'm going out of here thinking, man, this is real. So those hearings will be overwhelming and provide the cover for the president to say, I'm not telling you this today because I've known it all these years, but I think I'm going to tell you now. I'm telling you this because I've just watched these hearings, and it's clear, and I've discussed this over with key leaders in Congress and also in the Pentagon, that, yeah, the evidence is compelling. This phenomenon is extraterrestrial. And I'm confirming that today. And we're going to work to see what other information we can get to you that is in government hands, that can be declassified. And to the extent that we can do that, you're going to be learning more. Not everything, but you're going to be learning more. And then once, and that could happen, that could be done by April. And then after that, we're in the post-disclosure world. Now, what happens then? Hell, you could spend days talking about that. But I can assure you, the aftermath of disclosure or confirmation will be the most intense intellectual period in history. It will involve more people worldwide than any other issue ever. It will be compelling. It will be riveting. It will be exciting. It will be worth the ride, man. And people will hopefully will look at it and go, man, I am so lucky that I didn't run the car into a tree almost like I did when I was 18, and I'm still here, because this is something you could live 100 or 1,000 lifetimes and not experience anything like what I think is coming.
Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and others have gone on record saying we don't know what these are. They're detailing them as a threat. Yet there are many proponents out there who believe that governments of the world are in touch with extraterrestrial species. Paul Hellyer has gone on record saying that Canada is in contact with 2 separate extraterrestrial species alone. I could just imagine what that's like in the United States. What do you think the public reaction would be if it ever came out through disclosure that we have been in contact with extraterrestrials for the past 70 years since Roswell?
Well, I think by contact they're meaning formal relations, some sort of alliance, treaty, whatever. In other words, not just, hey, they dropped by once and said hello. Let me say 2 things about that. One, we're not going to learn that until after disclosure. That's not going to come out before disclosure or confirmation. And 2, yeah, it's a really big, it's a really tough problem. It is a serious public relations problem. And I have some empathy for them, all right? I appreciate it, and one of the reasons that the truth embargo has lasted is because there is not a lot of, how can I put this? There's a lot of people that don't want to have to answer those questions. I mean, they realize that is going to be tough. And I have some empathy, but so what? All right? We're going to have to get the truth, and you're going to have to answer those questions. And I think people will be more generous than they think. I think they're going to be a little more understanding than they think. So that would be a tough one to learn. But I don't think it's been established, and it hasn't been proven. So I'm certainly not going to assert that that is, in fact, what's going on. The other, so in terms of Mellon, one thing you have to understand about these fellows is that, and there's something I'm going to read to you in a minute, which is kind of important. Hang on a second, I want to get it, if I can get it here. Where is this puppy? I'll find it. The people in To the Stars have been operating from day one under some serious constrictions. There is plenty they cannot talk about. They're under NDAs, but more importantly than that, the people that are backing them, that allowed this to go forward at all right, have put restrictions on them. In other words, there's things you can't say. You can't violate your NDAs. You certainly can't release classified information. We don't want you saying the word extraterrestrial. We don't want you saying matter of fact they're here. In other words, stay between the lines. I believe every single member of the To the Stars Academy is fully aware there's an extraterrestrial presence. Absolutely. They're too smart. They've been around too long. They're too connected. But that doesn't mean they can say that. In terms of threat, they have been relatively careful. They should say potential threat. They usually do, but sometimes they say threat. There's a big difference between the two, and I've actually called them out on that. But there's no misunderstanding about that. Look, the threat issue, the national security issue, is key to the success of this project. You're not going to get members of Congress to agree to hold hearings about how to welcome the ETs when they arrive. That those hearings are going to be political safe as long as they're based on national security, and getting the media to cover it. So national security is the core. Military witnesses are the key witnesses. That doesn't mean they're pushing a threat agenda. I don't believe they have a threat agenda, and let me make that point really strongly. For those that have watched the Unidentified series, they know that the threat issue or potential threat has come up, and there have been witnesses and so forth. Well, that series ended September. There was a season of 6 and a season of 8. And on the very last show, something extraordinary happened, which some people picked up on, but I definitely picked up on. The last show in the Unidentified History series was about contact. Which is, let's just say, a whole nother level up from where they had been. Now, not surprisingly, the contact was with military guys, encounters. Now, the message they sent with that show was that, look, we're having to be careful and we're staying between the lines here, but we're aware of what's going down and we're aware of the contact phenomena, and that is going to be part of our future stuff, but maybe not right away, but we're giving you a little teaser here. And I have a feeling a lot of people may not have liked that, but that show was about contact. But here at the end of the show, this is the end of the series. There may never be another unidentified series. Elizondo and Mellon close out these 14 episodes with the final remarks at the very end before the show ends. These remarks are significant. In fact, some people actually immediately put them down, transcribed them, put up some posts, and I saw these and grabbed them. Now, I want you to listen to these words carefully. These are the closing remarks made by Elizondo at the very end of the unidentified series. In other words, the last thing he said on this subject at the end of that series. Lewis, what does it mean for us if we are presented one day with the fact that there are others with a capital O out there? Does it mean we are not as special anymore? Or does it mean that we have brothers and sisters that now we should start a new journey with? I think there is magic in that. It's wondrous to think that in the greater cosmos, billions and billions of light years with billions and trillions of stars and planets, that we are all part of this interesting cosmic neighborhood. Wouldn't it be amazing? Maybe we will all be more human. Maybe we will learn to be more than human if we have a chance to learn from something else. And therefore, our definition of being human, a human being, is expanded. Does that sound like a man who got involved in this in order to serve up a threat agenda to the public and the politicians in order to fund a $1 trillion space force? I don't think so. Now, let's hear the last words from Christopher Mellon. His last words, end of the unidentified series. The phenomenon is real. These are not Russian, U.S., or Chinese vehicles. If there is another intelligence from another system which is vastly more advanced and sophisticated than we are, and we are able to establish contact and communication, it would be the equivalent of possibly gaining hundreds of thousands or millions of years of knowledge in days or weeks. Well, that's a little over the top, but nevertheless. Does that sound like a man who is hell-bent on seeing a space force develop to defend us against the evil ETs? I don't think so. And then here's a little addition to that. Recently, I went on History Channel, right, and just checking to see the listings, and I went to the show, and it listed the shows on Unidentified, Season 1, Season 2. But I noticed that they only listed 7 episodes of Season 2. The final episode, the one that I just talked about, was not listed on the History Channel. It was gone. I went to IMDb to confirm that all those episodes were in play, and yeah, you go to IMDb and it shows the 2 seasons, episodes 1 through 6, and then episodes 1 through 8. Something happened that caused the History Channel to remove that listing. I have a feeling it's because there were some people that were not happy that they went there, that they approached contact, that they talked that way at the end, because it was outside the lines. Okay, is that a big deal? No. But I say this to give your audience a sense of why and how I'm coming to these understandings. You have to look at the full picture. You have to look at a lot of stuff, and you've got to think between the lines to try to understand what is going down here, because they're not telling us exactly what's going down, because they can't. They can't just come out and say, here's the agenda, here's where we're going, here's what we want, because unraveling the truth embargo is not some straightforward process. It is 4-dimensional chess. These guys are playing a good game, but they sent us a message with that series. I invite people to go find it on Daily Motion or wherever the hell they can get it and watch Season 8, because it was probably the most remarkable of the 14 shows.
Stephen, I want to say thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio, as you do a couple times each year, to keep us up to date on what's happening in Washington, D.C., and with the disclosure movement. And all the best to you coming up here in the next number of months here as we see where this topic goes, and hopefully when it picks up steam when COVID dies. So thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure, Dave. All right. Take care.
It's always a pleasure. Stephen Bassett, everyone. His website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, as Stephen is always on the ball, and you can find thousands of UFO and disclosure reports, news articles, everything on that website. Coming up next, we're going to play a little fun game with our audience here in the chat rooms. We're going to play the Magic 8 Ball. And then we're going to get to the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Day. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. That was a good show. Steve always hangs up early. Magic 8 Ball, everyone. Magic 8 Ball. Warming it up. Warming it up. Make sure your questions come in capital letters for some Magic 8 Ball. Remember, they have to be yes-no questions. You can't sit there and say, could you please tell me the color of my next partner's eyes? That doesn't work. Got to be specific questions. Brian, 27 rings, 27 titles. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. You don't have Mookie Wilson and Lenny Dykstra and Darryl Strawberry anymore. Doc Gooden isn't on the mound. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. Yeah, Fast Hemi, I'm not putting that question onto terrestrial radio. Remember, these questions do have to be good for terrestrial radio people. Clean up the question, Oob. And what have they won you, Brian? The big 0. 0. I will ask that question, Brian. And I can already tell you what the Magic 8 Ball is going to say, because it never lies. Okay, just wait on your questions, guys. We got like 4 minutes here. 4 minutes. More like 3 minutes. I apologize. Hey, Brian on Twitter, I apologize. I was going to make that comment, what you said on your tweet, and I thought it was pretty good, and I was going to mention that to Steve, but I ran out of time, so I apologize. Oh, guys, I had the weirdest dream, and I forgot about it for a couple of days, and I was watching a video on YouTube today about sinking an aircraft carrier to become an artificial reef, and they had this one camera angle, not on the boat, but in the water, that just absolutely brought this dream back to me. I'll tell you, I have never been this scared on a dream in my life. I don't even know how to explain it. I was literally dead. And they threw me in the water, whoever they were. I don't know who they were. But it almost felt like it was like ceremonial. Threw me in the water, and my soul is still looking through my eyes at my dead body. And I see the splash with my body going in, and I'm floating down. Well, not floating, sinking, I guess. Sinking down. And I'm watching the light from outside get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller till it's just a little ball. And then I feel my body hit the bottom. And all I could think about is I can't swim because I'm dead. I can't move my arms. I can't open my mouth. I'm not breathing. How come I'm not breathing underwater? Why am I doing this? And I was like literally, I'm like, doesn't the soul leave the body? And I started freaking out. Like, am I going to be sitting here staring up at that little piece of light underwater for eternity? It scared the living hell out of me. I couldn't talk. I couldn't yell. Couldn't do anything. And I've had an anxiety moment about this literally all day. And scared the daylights out of me. Literally scared the daylights out of me. So that one freaked me out. Yeah, that dream happened on the weekend. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, we're going to play a little game here with our audience in our chat rooms and on Twitter called the Magic 8 Ball, where you guys are going to ask us a bunch of questions, and we're going to ask old 8 Ball here to come out and play, see if we can get some answers. Because, you know, you never go wrong with the Magic 8 Ball. It always tells the truth. It is psychically connected to the mysterious universe that we have out there. So here we go. We're going to start asking. I haven't figured out any good music for this little feature that we're going to do here every now and again. But we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it right now. First question from our audience comes from Brian. And, you know, I feel sorry for this guy. He's a little ill when it comes to choosing his sports teams. As, you know, I'm a New York Yankees fan. Yes, I'm in British Columbia. And way up north, way too much snow and cold. But I'm still a Yankees fan, and he happens to be a Mets fan. And I feel sorry for anybody who's a Mets fan, because it's like being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan in hockey, where, you know, you keep saying that championship is coming, and it just never does. It's like the boy who cried wolf in sports. So Brian's question is, will the Mets win a World Series title before the Yankees' next one? Because the Yankees have 27. You know, we're pretty much due. It's been a while. But you know what? The Mets hasn't been that long. Only, I think, 1986. So, who knows? Who knows? So let's get to the question. Magic 8 Ball. Will the New York Mets win a World Series ring before the Yankees' next one? Let's see. Here we go. The answer is, my sources say no. My sources say no. I believe that the accuracy of the Magic 8 Ball is 100%. Just by that answer right there. Because you never wish anyone to be a Mets fan, or a Leafs fan for that matter. You just don't wish that. And in the meantime, I am alienating and segregating my entire audience at Saga 960 right now. So let's just move on. before we do that. Let's just move on. All right. Paul wants to know, so we shake up the magic 8-ball once again. Do extraterrestrials smell bad? Do extraterrestrials smell bad? Oh, grand 8-ball. Give it a little shake here. You can hear it there. All right. Here we go. We need an answer. We have no answer for this. It says, I'm in hypersleep. In hypersleep. Which I'm going to say that the magic 8-ball does not want to answer that question for fear and loathing that the ETs may come down and strike a hoax or a hex on the magic 8-ball, taking its powers away. I can understand the fear that the magic 8-ball has for that. Let's go to PBR here in the chat room. And he is asking, was TTSA fake? Was TTSA, a.k.a. the To the Stars Academy, fake? Oh, magic 8-ball, what do you think? Let's flip it on over. The answer is, ask again later, PBR. Ask again later. Magic 8-ball doesn't like that question. Just saying. What are we going to do? All right. 509 Divine Pines is trying very hard to grow a beard and mustache, along with the perfect hair to go along with it. And good luck to you for that. He is asking, are we currently in a war against aliens? Are we in a war against aliens? Magic 8-ball, what do you think? Tell us what is happening up in space here. The answer is infinitely yes. We got some war happening up in space where the aliens versus humans. It's right out of Independence Day, and I believe that's where Will Smith is right now. Harry Connick Jr. was already blown out of the sky. So we got to go with Will Smith because, he never dies. Joe in California is asking, will Dave get abducted this week? Will Dave get abducted this week? That's a little personal. How about will Joe get abducted? We'll first do Dave, then we'll do Joe. So the answer for Dave is, come on, Magic 8-ball. Out of fuel. Try again later, Joe. Try again later. How about, will Joe be abducted by aliens this week? Because Joe doesn't like to admit that he's got aliens. He's got big-time aliens here. So, Magic 8-ball, is Joe getting abducted by aliens this week? The answer is, Intel looks good. Intel looks good. So, Joe's getting abducted by aliens this week. I am not, which is always nice. And we're going to continue on with the show. Off-World Adam is asking, well, no, I can't ask that. Come on. Can't ask that. I got to scroll down to see if there's any logical questions here. Let's see here. Is eating waffles for breakfast okay? It's a breakfast meal, so why wouldn't it be? We don't need the Magic 8-ball for that one. Sir Wolf is asking, is Dr. Stephen Greer a reptile wrapped up as a human? Good, solid question there. Is Dr. Stephen Greer a reptile wrapped up as a human? All right. Let's get the answer here. The answer is, I'm going to turn it this way a little bit. As I see it, yes. The Magic 8-ball confirms that Dr. Stephen Greer is a reptilian, dressed up like a human. If the Magic 8-ball says it, it's got to be true. Am I right? Am I right? All right, Chris Moe. Will human history end rather quickly? Ooh, going for the dark and the macabre tonight. We never get to use the word macabre on this show enough. Will human history end rather quickly? Reply hazy, try again. See, there are certain questions that those in the spirit land do not want us to know. This being one of them, which they put the energy into the magic 8-ball. And literally, they do not want us to know that answer. They do not want us to know that answer. All right. Keith is asking, will a cryptid or alien UFO UAP be encountered in eastern Montana in 2021? Ooh, I'm feeling a little excited for this one because Montana is not that far away from me. It's only about an 8-hour drive. Let's get to the answer, Keith. Will a cryptid or alien or UFO be encountered in eastern Montana in 2021? The answer from the Magic 8-Ball, sensors read no. I'm surprised by this. Magic 8-Ball, are you sure? It's like I'm talking to it, like it's going to respond back. No, Dave, I think I screwed up on that answer. No, that's not going to happen. But I'm very surprised by that. But we also look at it, Keith, that the 8-Ball's been pretty accurate tonight, especially with the Yankees winning a World Series before the Mets ever do. Okay, we're real close on this one. Real close on this one. All right, moving on down. See if there's any more here before we get to the news, because we have time for a couple more. All right, Brian wants to know, Magic 8-Ball, was Brian's sighting on Christmas Eve extraterrestrial? Was Brian's sighting on Christmas Eve extraterrestrial? Let's see what the Magic 8-Ball says. Sensors read no. Sorry, Brian, you're 0 for 2 tonight. You are 0 for 2 tonight. I apologize. But the Magic 8-Ball doesn't lie. Does not lie. Irish Lincoln wants to know, am I a government agent? I think agent he was trying to spell. Am I a government agent like Corrence the booking guy claims I am? Agnet. Irish agnet? Magic 8-Ball? What do you say? As I see it, yes. Yes, you are. Because, we probably do have some sort of spies or spooks listening to this show on a nightly basis. Hey, Gene in D.C., give us a call sometime if you're tuned on in. All right. Let's see here. 509 is asking another morbid question. Will the power grid be destroyed in the next 5 years from this alien war we are in? The answer by the Magic 8-Ball is in hypersleep. In hypersleep. They don't want any more. They don't want any more. And you know what? On that note, thank you to everybody participating, because that's what we have a little fun around here. Let's get to the news. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we'll get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the delicious. When NASA's Perseverance rover goes through the 7 minutes of terror to land itself on Mars on February 18th, you can sit back, watch the NASA coverage, and relax, because it's not every day that NASA lands an SUV-sized rover on Mars. The last rover to land on Mars was Curiosity in 2012. The stationary InSight lander touched down in 2018. To mark the rare occasion, Krispy Kreme is offering a limited edition themed donut, only available on Thursday Thursday, the Mars donut will look like the red planet itself. Krispy Kreme's Mars donut celebrates NASA's Perseverance rover and its upcoming landing on Mars. The caramel-dipped and chocolate cream-filled donut, otherwise known as a Boston cream at Tim Hortons, is topped off with a swirl that resembles Mars and even has sprinkles of chocolate cookie crumbs for its authentic dusty Martian touch. If you submit your name during NASA's Send Your Name to Mars campaign, which put almost 11 million names on the rover before it departed for its journey to Mars, bring your boarding pass to Krispy Kreme, and your Mars donut will be free. The landing of Perseverance on Mars will be an epic and important achievement, said Dave Skina, Krispy Kreme Chief Marketing Officer, in a statement. So we're celebrating the best way we know how with an amazing new donut discovery right here on Earth. It's not a new donut discovery. You're just painting up a Boston cream in different colors. That's all you're doing. Adding a few sprinkles. Come on, man. Bring back the Dutchie, Tim Hortons. By the way, I know it's a Krispy Kreme story, but I'm still upset. Like 7 years ago, Tim Hortons got rid of the Dutchie donut. Greatest donut ever. It was the greatest donut ever. Still upset about that. Amsterdam police officers dispatched to investigate reports of a person lying lifeless in a town this past Wednesday when surprised and relieved to find out that it wasn't a person, but somebody made a snowman of a person lying down. The officers expected to find someone unwell or maybe even the victim of crime, the police said on their Facebook, but after our colleagues approached the body, they saw that the police tape or ambulance could happily stay out of it. It was a handsome snow creation, including an orange carrot for a nose. Whew, that's always good. That's always good. The latest craze in healthcare seems to be setting up GoFundMe pages just so people can pay their doctors. It's a real sorry state of affairs that such donation drives are needed in the first place, but hey, at least they are helping people. Unfortunately, though, wherever there's money, there will always be unscrupulous characters looking to make an easy buck. It's a good thing, though, that the long term and the long arm of the law manages to catch most of them. In the United Kingdom, 42-year-old Nicole Elkbass was sentenced to 33 months in jail for setting up a GoFundMe account in 2017, asking for donations to treat her ovarian cancer. The thing is, Elkbass never had cancer, but that didn't stop her from accepting almost $70,000 in donations from kind-hearted people who only wanted to help. Nearly 700 well-meaning donors fell for her scam. You can't really blame them for believing her lies. Elkbass played the public like a fiddle. Her profile included a picture of herself bedridden in hospital. She even had written the profile descriptions as if it had been authored by her mother. The sob story described as a loving mom of an 11-year-old son who had been recently diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Her request for money was straightforward. If she didn't get enough funds to pay for her treatment, her made-up disease would kill her. Really? No wonder she got caught. Because, well, she just did not have the disease. You know, she went spending money on lavish gifts, trips to New York, and all sorts of luxury vacations. $5,500 for a private box at a soccer match for her son and friends. Yeah, well, unfortunately, Judge Mark Weeks did not fall for it and has sent her to jail. Here's another one. California Highway Patrol said troopers responding to a report of body parts floating in the water next to a highway ramp were relieved to discover the limbs and torsos were actually mannequin parts. Yeah, a trucker called into the CHP after catching a glimpse of this ghastly sight, but thank you to the fact that it was mannequins and not human beings. Finally, tonight, a Florida golfer ended up finding an exception to the play it where it lies rule when an alligator grabbed his ball in his mouth and swam away. Mark Goldstein says he was playing at the Pelican Sound Golf Club in Estero when he had an errant shot, because that's what we call it when we screw up in golf, an errant shot, and his ball rolled towards a pond. Well, the problem was He brought out his phone to record a video when he saw a gator nearby. The gator then grabs the ball in the mouth. I'll tell you, that is a free drop if I've ever heard one, because you don't want to play that one. You just don't. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What's your thoughts on the UFOs being a political issue? Foya Boy, otherwise known as Cherry Pepsi Mike, sucks, but as long as politics decides where the money goes, the two must be addressed. Also, this is my political affiliation. Anthony, I think, like every other topic, they touch that politicians just mess it all up. How about just telling us the truth? Jules, it should not be. It's a planetary issue of importance to all equally. Uriah, when politicians resort to UFO topics or UFO people resort to politics, it looks like an act of desperation. But since religion and UFO link has been beat to death, maybe it's the next logical step. Psychop, disclosure is an inherently political topic. I don't think there's any way around that. The actual study of the phenomena doesn't have to be, though. UFO podcast, for me, when people say political, they tend to mean U.S. politics. It shouldn't be. The U.S. system, as we have seen, is so flawed and has so many issues, it truly is a worldwide issue. The U.S. leads the way. Others must follow. Richard, well, hopefully once my story becomes known, it will transcend all politics, religions, and other dogmas. Carl, to me, it's political, especially now. I'm waiting for Biden to take 30 seconds to comment on what is probably the biggest story of mankind so far. 13 ballots, only if it can be combined with a more mundane social issue. Example, government funding for senior homes to set up UFO clubs, stargazing, and the like to improve the lot for seniors. I like that idea. I do. Let's move on here as we got time for a couple of more. Gregory, after the military spending was said to possibly be cut, our fearless autocratic leader at the time proposed we create a space force so money can be funneled into the complex. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference anyways. Davey, it shouldn't be a political issue. It should transcend all political affiliations. Andy, that is simple. If it will get a candidate one vote, we will make it political. Gail, I believe UFOs, aliens supersede any politicizing government folks would like to do. Kevin, Dave, are you trying to tell us that even aliens are pro-Trump? Bobby, if yucky politicians make it political, they will ruin first contact as they ruin everything they touch. Jessica, there are politics everywhere you go and in everything you look at. All right, Carrie, I don't think they give a crap about politics. Mike, because it becomes a who knew what and who was lying to us issue, in my opinion. Tim, they had a chance to gather up most of the aliens on January 6th. Missed that opportunity. Cousin Darren, ask Jeff Bezos. Oh, Cousin Darren, coming in strong there. Science Bob, this is a national security issue in the U.S., so politics has no place. Will it? Probably. And finally, Ron, that would be awesome if UFOs took the politicians away and dropped them off on the sun. Thank you to everybody in the Thought of the Dave. Thank you so much for playing on the Magic 8 Ball. Captain Shirk for the news and Steve Bassett for a great interview. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone taking in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. This show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends,
don't make a mistake. We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, We need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but we shall soon ride again, my friends. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, good news, we've got room for them too. Good night.